All right, we are back. I hope you missed us. It is the 2019 version of the Great Western Trail Final at WBC. That's the World Boardgaming Championship. This event took place. We're recording this. What is today? It's August
9th.
August 9th. So we've been home for a week and a half. This tournament ran from July
22nd.
Thank you.
29.
You got it good. Yeah, July 22nd to the 29th. There's 100 different events at WBC. Great Western Trail is just one of them. And so the tournament took place over the course of those 9 days. I really spread it out. I was the GM. And we had 3 heats, 3 chances to play the game. And we took the results from those 3 heats. We cut to the top 16 players, had 4-player semifinal games. And the winners of those semifinal games are going to be appearing here in this final. And I'm going to be joined today on my left hand by Eugene Yee. He was with me last year. This is where you say hi.
Hi. Sorry.
And then on my right hand, we have a new guest. Donte Saccenti is on my right.
Hello.
So, there's going to be an immediate spoiler in this. We have the guy who won this game here on my left is Eugene. Eugene won this year, and the guy on my right hand is the guy who won it last year. So I'm just the guy talking to the 2 champions here. It's pretty neat to have this kind of commentators for this episode we get to watch. I want to say a couple things before we dive into the game we're about to look at. And by the way, what you're seeing right now is the starting board setup, and we're going to get those were my hands right there, and I'm just introducing everybody to the board and letting them know everything's been shuffled for them and all the cards are set and everything like that. We are about to bid for turn order, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But I want to say we did this last year, and the reason for doing it, I felt like at the time, the reason for doing it was to not just make a record of a neat event, which is something, but also to really have a chance to do something you don't see a whole lot on board game, podcasts or board game videos, which is to really talk in depth about strategy. I understand that this is a niche of a niche kind of situation, and I was really surprised by, how many people were interested in this, and I think video was actually influential, and maybe we'll get to talk about that some more. But we've had since last year, there's been 2 major tournaments before the one you're looking at now. There's the one at EuroQuest in November, and then there's the one in Charlottesville, PressCon in February. And in both of those tournaments, I actually saw the results of some of the things that we talked about in that video getting played out before me in the tournament scene, which was really neat. It is kind of why we did this. So we're going to look at this one this year in much the same way. This is, a niche of a niche. This is right before we started recording, we were actually talking about who's watching this kind of video and who are we pitching this to. And it's certainly not a how to play video. For how to play what the rules are or anything like that. This is a how to win video on some level. And at the same time, it's a documentary of a great event that happened. So it's both those things at once, I think. So I hope you enjoy it. And again, I was really thrilled with all the feedback we got from last year's. It's total amateur hour here, obviously, but I was really thrilled with the feedback we got from last year's efforts. So, all right. So let's start. Like last year, we're going to save the in-depth introductions for later when there's maybe a little lull in the play. And I want to start by inviting you to look at what we're looking at right now, the 3 of us sitting here. And the question I'm going to throw out to these 2 panelists is, we're about to bid for turn order. You're looking at the opening board setup. What are some things that jump out at you? I'll start with Eugene.
For me, when I'm looking at the setup while we're deciding what to bid, I look at definitely where all the neutral buildings are and trying to figure out where, especially where the building spot is, which is in this case, it's second from the end, which is where you discard a green card for $2 and get to build buildings. Also, where you hire workers, which is sort of in the center of the game. And also the initial 4 workers that are available, plus what you can see coming on the horizon. For me, the way the bidding setup is that the start objective cards are attached to the bidding positions.
That was new this year.
Yeah, so bidder 1, whoever gets first position, is going to get that objective card to the far right, and then 2 gets the next one, and moving on back to the left. Personally, I don't find that quite as important, but that's just me.
Well, the whole point is you and I often talk about, and I think we're mostly of a piece about why we bid. It's to take the luck out of the randomness of the game, and so why not, right? Take the luck out of the randomness of the game.
Correct. Yep.
Donte, what do you see jumps out? We're not done with this, but let Donte jump in. What do you see right away when you're looking at the board like that? What catches your eye?
So when it's the first turn and it's a setup of Great Western Trail, and you're looking about what kind of game it's going to be like, what I first look at is the hazards. Where are the hazards?
Yeah.
The point of looking at the hazards is it tells you where to put your taxing building. By taxing building, I mean the green number 1 spot with the green hand. So when I look at this board, I see a hazard on each blue, yellow, and gray, and I see 2 hazards on gray. So I'm immediately thinking I'm going to want to go first, and I'm going to want to put my hazard taxing building in that first spot.
Up in the top right in the canyon, right?
Yes.
So up in the top right, we usually call the canyon. At the very bottom, the blue one we call the swamp, and over in the left, the yellow we call the desert. So you're looking at those 2 hazards up in the canyon. And if anybody looks at the future market up there in the top left, I hope there's a little bit of glare, unfortunately, but just so you know, they're both canyon hazards too. So you're looking at 4 of the 6 canyon hazards in the game right from the start. And so, yeah, that's the first thing I'd see is a taxing building in between the TP buying spot and the building spot up there in the forest below the canyon. That's going to be something that pays out the whole game. And I would think that there's going to be a little bit of a race to see who can go first, take their first actions to build a building. Like Donte said, drop that $2 one level building and with the green hand on it and start getting your money there.
Another thing that I see that I like to emphasize on when you're looking at the setup of this game is on the left side is what's going to come out. So you're looking at the heads and, like you said, those 2 gray hazards and the 1, 2, and 3 shot, that what's coming out in the future. So you see over there that there's going to be 3 engineers, 2 cowboys, 3 cowboys, and 1 worker. So you know that whoever goes to buy ahead first has an option of one of the 3 types and 2 engineers.
Yeah, well, what's the glaring omission in this game for what's the shortage right now in workers, if you see it? I mean,
it looks like the shortage is going to be builders.
Yeah.
So that there's 1 on the very top row. So whoever gets that first, if they decide they want to get a builder, then they get that, and nobody else will. And the only time they would get another one, because the first person that delivers, they will put a head in the second $6 row, which bumps it down, and whatever they put in for the number 3 isn't going to show up until a couple more people deliver. So if it's a race for builders, specifically if there's a race for builders, whoever gets the first builder is going to get one, and no one else may see one for a couple rounds. And that might make it really tough.
So let's just belabor the obvious for a moment and mention that buying builders has been what was winning this game as of a year ago. I mean, Donte on my right won with the builder strategy last year. He won the final with that. It's been by far it's the go-to strategy right now for winning the game. And so I think what we're saying is, what's the decision point here? Isn't the decision point right now between dropping a sure thing tax building in the top right with an early play, or is the right move to snipe one of those builders while you can with your first action? What's the right play?
That is a tough question.
I think so. I think the meta of the game has moved slightly toward people using their first action to snipe a worker. And that is kind of a 360. I think when we were playing the game early in the evolution of the game, I think we would often buy a worker first, and we didn't realize how impactful the tax buildings are. Right. And I'm not saying that the setting up a good tax position isn't still the easiest way to win. But in my own personal game, I have sometimes decided to just snipe the builder and pass on worrying about the tax building quite as much. That's different. That's where I am a year later from last year's recording.
Right. And also, let me just throw in real fast. If you're watching the bidding going on while we've been talking, you will notice that the first 4 bids were all to go first.
Yeah.
Somebody went 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think the green player bailed out. The blue, and I'm playing blue in this particular game. The blue and the yellow player both kept racing to go first. I finally, the red and the green player finally bailed out. Here comes.
We're about to see one of the, I think, the first of any number of huge mistakes in this game.
So I also decided that 6 points was just too much. Or bidding over 6 points would be too much just to go first, and so I decided to bail out.
Yeah.
And
Dan put it on the 6.5. I think he was really trying to send a message there. So I'll keep going, baby. I'm not going to stop. So Dan Smith, by the way, is going to be the yellow player. Eugene Yee is blue. Brandon Buchanan is red, and Randy Buehler, who has picked his piece up, is green. And as we watch the video, the green hat looks a little bit black. You'll see what I mean. But that's the green player there. And then Randy just go. Okay, so now let's talk about what we're actually seeing happen. Randy just went 4th for 0, and thus you all completely hung Dan out to dry there with a 6 bid for first. Because typically what'll happen is, if you bid 6 for first, somebody will go 2 or 3 for second.
Correct. Third
will usually go for 1. I think it's crazy not to pay 1 point to go 3rd over 4th. That's me personally.
Right.
So Randy bails out for a reason that we need to discuss. He has a plan. And there's a reason he did that. And it has to do with, on some level, believing that the designer properly balanced the game, because he gives you an extra dollar. Yeah, so the star player gets 6, the second guy gets 7, third guy gets 8, and the fourth guy gets 9. And so Randy has plans for those $9, and that's why he was happy to go 4th.
Right.
I mean, I'm gonna be a huge critic of all of you guys throughout this video, as I was last year. And last year I didn't win, and this year I didn't even make the final. So I really shouldn't say nothing, right? But I think going 4th for 0 is a huge mistake.
I did feel lucky getting 2nd for $1.
Oh, that's insane,
for 1
man!
point.
You stole that.
Yeah.
You stole that. And Dan, the yellow player, he is really, really unhappy with you guys right now, because that was not supposed to happen.
Right.
But you got it. As we sometimes talk about, and this happens. When you bid, make a bid. Be comfortable with it, because things happen.
So I also want to mention, so in case people can't see what the building flip is for the game. So in case anybody's following at home or using a copy of the game, the buildings out are 1B, 2B, 3B, 4A, 5A, 6B, 7A, 8B, 9B, and 10A.
And if that was too fast for you, I do include a note in the YouTube details.
Okay.
So it'll be written up.
So the other thing, when we were talking earlier about what you look at in the setup, one of the things that I noticed was that there are 2 buildings in the game which generally lend themselves to playing a cow strategy. Yeah. And those buildings are 2A, which is your personal cow market, and 4B, which is cycling cards according to the number of cowboys you have. Neither of those buildings are in the game, so in my mind, it was lending itself not to a particular cow strategy. Also, given that the only cow market in the game is at the very end of the loop, so that you may not have a whole ton of money. You have to make sure, if you're going to play a cow strategy, that you find yourself with a bunch of money at the end, and that is not an easy thing to do.
All the buying places are up near the top.
Right.
They're all at the top. So it's going to be the kind of game where taxing buildings are going to pay because people are not going to be able to dump all their money off by, spending it all on the cow or whatever, and then run through your tax building and say, oh, sorry, I got no money left. You don't get anything. Your tax buildings are going to pay off. By the way, the players have rearranged themselves according to the turn order that they bid for. In the top right corner, yellow is Dan Smith. Bottom right, blue is Eugene Yee. Bottom left is Brandon Buchanan with red, and top left is Randy Buehler with green. So Dan's going to go first, and let's see what he let's see what he paid 6 points to do. Donte, what's your first play here? You're going first. What's your first play here?
Well,
this is tough.
I would just say that I was not a person who watched this game at the final.
Yeah, Dante's watching this for the first time.
Yeah, this is my first time watching this, and during the game there was 10 people crowded around it, so there's a whole bunch of people watching it.
Yes.
So everything I say here, I don't know what's going to happen in this game. I don't know what Dan's first play is.
You know the order of finish pretty much.
I know that Eugene Yee is now the greatest Great Western player in the world.
That's right.
I was last year, but now I'm
for 11 and a half more months at least, right?
But what Dan is going to do on his first move, if I was him and I was paying 6 points to go first, I would be thinking about, as I always do, no matter what, is look at where the hazards are, because I think money in this game is everything. Money is points.
Okay.
So I would be thinking about where to place my taxing building, but because there's a hazard spot in every single, the yellows, the blues, and the grays, that's not as important because there's a whole bunch of spots to place your taxing building. So I'll be looking at that one builder that's there, and I think I might want to go buy a head first, get that builder, and then build a taxing building.
Yeah, and so that's what Dan's going to do, which takes that option away from Eugene. So Eugene, I will ask you just real quick: would you, if he'd gone ahead and dropped the tax turn, would you have gone ahead and got the head or not?
Yes.
Okay. So
absolutely.
So Dan paid $6 to do what we think should have been done.
Right. And
I
figured,
agree. This is my first play too. I think he played this right.
And I just figured going second, I'm okay. If he gets the builder, then I'm going to put my tax building I have the first shot at putting a tax building down. To
talk a big picture strategy here real quick. There is never anything wrong with buying, having two builders. Two builders it doesn't mean you're going to have to build that game. You can still do engineer, you can still do cowboy. Having two builders just open. It's not going to be something you regret. Oh, I wasted it on that, because you're going to buy a couple buildings, and it's going to let you buy what's almost always a really valuable 4A or 4B building. Without having to lever another building up. You'll be able to buy it in one pop. It's the one that gets you. It's the $2 taxer, which is
correct.
Which is going to pay for itself. So right. Eugene does the sensible thing here.
So I go ahead, and if he takes the builder, then I'm going to get my tax building out first. And I really don't care where I start building. I just want to get it out there up so that it is where people have to pay me rather than spending the extra $1 to go around the rock slide. And Brandon does sort of the same thing, but he puts it in a different place.
Now, this is where we need to talk about this, right?
And then Randy, when I talked to him later, he said he had his plan, and he wanted to go after Cowboys. Yeah. And so he sets himself up so that he has lots of money so that he can buy 2 workers on his first shot into the worker market.
There's so much happening early that we get. I know this is going to be like a 3-hour commentary, but there's just so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about right now. I could spend 15 minutes telling you why I disagree with what Randy's doing right here. I just think I think it's a big mistake. I'm sorry, Donte wants to jump in.
So just so that I can understand what Randy is doing. So Randy is skipping the heads. Yeah. Well, not skipping, but he's
he's down low.
He's
down
not
low.
going to the heads. He's not going to the builders. Right now, he's getting
dishing.
Money. He's dishing 2 cards to get $4.
Right.
And the point of him doing that is so that he can go and buy 2 heads.
2 heads.
Correct.
That is interesting.
Correct. Because a lot of times when we play the game, you look at this like lots of worker placement games as a matter of efficiency. So that when you're trying to buy, if you're going to a worker market, you can buy 2 heads at a time rather than just 1. That's not a bad thing. Usually we consider that a really strong play.
But in this particular game, Great Western Trail rewards you for having 2 workers and then having 4 workers, disproportionately more than having 3. I know that might seem odd, but it's, in my mind, always okay to buy one worker that first time. I agree you want to be efficient. You should actually, for the rest of the game, if I go to the buy worker place, I want to buy 2. Otherwise I feel like I've wasted a turn. But for the very first one, I'm always okay buying 1, because then when I go back to it the next time, whenever that is, I'll buy 2 and it triggers something. It triggers something good, and you set up for that something good. I don't think there was any race to get to 3 cowboys instead of 2. I don't think there was any race to get to cowboys. Cowboys is available, and it's going to be available. I mean, Randy probably maybe argue with me, and as it turns out, he had to fight Brandon for him. But the race is for Buehler. That's the race in this game, in the current meta of this game right now. So the only way in a million years I would have did what Randy did, which was willingly go forth and start my game in such a slow, grindy way, just so I can pull off this awesome maneuver of buying 2 workers in the first loop, which I don't even think is important, is if the 2 workers I was going to get were the 2 builders on the board and I was going to have them and nobody else could get them, then I'd do it. But otherwise, get through the loop, get your money that way. You know how I play. Right. I run.
Right.
I go around as fast as I can. I don't care about dropping discs in Kansas City. I don't care where my discs go. Every time I go through the loop, I'm getting more money than I'm getting from playing a pair for $4. It's too slow. I actually hate that tile. That tile, by the way, is going to be the bane of so much of your all's game. That tile in the bottom left, the one that's at the end of the swamp, the one that in almost every game of Great Western Trail, in almost every game of Great Western Trail, that bottom left tile ends up being critical because it tends to be a tile that you always hit. Just because of the flow of the rondel, you almost always hit that one.
Yeah,
you can't avoid it almost.
Yeah,
and when it's that particular one, it's really awful because that tile is actually, first of all, I think perhaps the weakest one in the game, and even when it's good, when you happen to have a pair, it's the weakest one in the game, I think, and you can get there any number of times and not have a pair. Right. Especially if you're buying cows, as you're about to see this happen over and over to the red player and the green player through the course of this game, is they are going to get hosed hard, and not even be able to get $4 out of it in that bottom left.
Right.
So you all catch up where.
All right. So this play that Dan Smith put that yellow building right after Eugene's. So if I'm Eugene and somebody places a taxing building after my taxing building, I would be very upset because yes. But because when people do that, it really discourages. It's another taxing building, so it sucks when that happens. But
because your opponents are now going to be motivated to go around. Yeah.
But by Dan doing that, that's a good play because there's so many great things out, and there's more coming in the future. It's a good play.
So Dan, this is interesting. Dan had 2 builders. The reason he didn't drop the black hand there is because he's a buck short, right? He was a buck short.
Yeah. But for me, I think it's okay because now we know that. After the TP building, for them to get to the building at the very top, they have to run through both Dan and myself.
Yeah.
So Dan and I will just trade off the dollars, and then we will each make $1 off the other 2 players. So for us, we both feel like we're in decent shape. It's not a bad thing for us.
No.
And the others are, and if they're trying to buy cows, now they're $2 less than they had before as they're making their way around the loop. And it's fine.
So here's something I want to mention that really involves the sort of the meta we have in our own local group, which is a really strong meta, if I do say so, versus the kind of different kind of play styles you see when you go to WBC and you're getting people from all over the country and even outside the country. You have this wealth of new faces coming in. In our meta at home, when 4A is in the game, the hazard buy-in one, as it is in this game, we buy the crap out of the hazards. By the end of the game, we have picked the board clean usually.
Correct.
I think that for us, even though I just said the weakest tile in the game, in my opinion, is the one that you play a pair and get and buy a hazard. I think that's an awful tile. But the one that lets you buy a hazard for $5, which is only $2 better. So what are you talking about, Scott? And you don't get to discard any cards because it's a free action. You get to bounce right off and do something else. It's a free action and it lets you spring. So when we have that in our local group, when that's in the game, I assume that the hazards are all going to be picked clean. And so when I see this game getting set up, I'm not nearly as worried about the canyon as I normally would be, because I think by the end of the game we'll have cleared it out. Maybe by the middle of the game we'll have started to clear it out. And so I'm not normally as worried. What I ran into at WBC, and this happened to me in my semifinal game to my great detriment, and it happens in this game too, is, I mean, other people value those differently than we do because those hazards sat there forever.
Right. Well, for me and for Dan, it was not in our best interest to remove the hazards. So if we are trying to build, you can only do that if you get a second builder and get the 4A building out.
Yes.
But if there's no builders out, you can't buy the builder so that you can't build the building, so that you can't remove the hazards.
Good point.
And that is what is going to happen for most of this game, because there's a paucity of builders. Those 3 rock slides, or however many rock slides, are going to stay there. And so for the yellow and the blue player, they're going to be collecting their money. And if we get our buildings out to remove hazards, those are not the hazards we're going to remove. We're going to remove anything but those. And so as the game has gone by, you've noticed that Randy, the green player, did buy his 2 cowboys. He had it timed right so that 2 cowboys did show up and he spent his money. And you'll notice in the upper left, he's only got $1 left, but he has his 3 cowboys. And then the other things have started to filling up the board, and nobody is putting builders out if they can possibly help it, and which is to Dan's advantage. And I think Dan is now, if you watched, he just delivered and he put not builders out.
Yeah.
Because it's on the $7 row.
Right.
And I think he is looking to have them thrown out onto the $5 row.
Well, who's going to do that for him?
And so I'm watching it. And so in my game, I think I'm a little bit farther ahead than people. Like I have delivered once. Dan has delivered once, but I'm ahead of him.
Yeah.
And so I am going around faster. And so when I'm looking ahead, and it's this far back that I'm starting to see things, or what I think might happen that might help me out. And that is, I want to see builders come out on the $5 row, because I think I might have it timed out so that I can take what I want. I'll be able to get to workers on the $5 row. You have to count out the number of deliveries that happen before all that stuff starts to come out.
One thing that I will say about when you're delivering, and say you're doing the engineer strategy and you're about to deliver stuff, and you have to decide what you are about to put on the table. So if you want engineers, then you don't want to put them out yourself, because if you put them out, then the odds are that somebody else is going to come in right after you and pick them up. So I think Dan did right. If he likes builders, but he doesn't want to put them out himself because someone will come in right after him. If you don't do that, then it comes around. You want to get stuff that comes out.
You want to time it so that you get...
Yes, you want to time it so you get it.
I got to tell you that in my own play, I am moving more and more away from that kind of thinking and more toward I'm going to put out what I need. If I'm building in this game, I'm going to put out every builder I can on whatever row I can. That's where I've kind of moved, which is a little bit away from another thing I want to mention, by the way. You saw this especially with Dan's play at Yellow. It was a couple minutes ago now. Players are taking a lot of time thinking about what tiles to put out in that binary choice, the number 1, number 2, number 3 when they deliver, and that is, to my mind, the sign of good players. This is one of the things that will separate you from the pack as you start to get better and better at this game. Is I can't tell you how many times I've played games with people who are not as experienced, and they will kind of mumble under their breath, doesn't matter, and put things out without really thinking about it. Part of this game is deciding what tiles to put out. We can argue about what the right decisions are, but I think it's an important decision. I don't think a good player would challenge that.
So now that I'm looking at, and right now I'm just talking about what's going through my own head, and that is because now I see a couple builders out. They're on the $7 line, but I'm ahead of Dan, and so I'm going to be able to. My next move is going to hit the worker hiring spot. Randy's making his move now. Watch
this play.
Randy's building his building.
Yeah. Watch where he puts it. Okay.
He just
Where
goes to
do you put this, right? And what building do you build? He hasn't built a building, right?
Correct.
So you put the taxer in the desert, right?
You want to put the taxer in the desert.
Of course you do. Watch what he does.
Yeah. So that he can collect some money. And we had sort of fallen behind, so we were trying to catch up and refill the heads because red player delivered.
He thinks about this for a long time, and I understand exactly what he's thinking about. He's thinking long term.
Correct.
But I think, and Randy's gonna kill me when he listens to this, and I know he's gonna listen to it because he was one of the first. I think he was the very first commenter last year, and he had very nice things to say about the work we did on this last year. But he's going
to ream you out this time,
and he's going to beat my ass at every game we play. But this is another huge mistake coming from him. It's a huge mistake, and he's going to say, well, it didn't have to be because Eugene hosted me later. But it's just this is a clear play in the desert, right?
Yeah.
You put the hazard in the desert. That's what you're doing. It's going to pay out. Okay. You'll see where it goes.
Well, you said that when Randy was thinking about this, he was thinking long term.
Yes.
If
which is absolutely okay.
Yes, it's good to think long term at the beginning of the game. But if you're thinking long term in this play, then you're thinking about money. Money is the most important thing in this game.
Right.
And that's why you want to put it right in that desert spot. That will make you money.
He's not thinking about it in terms of taxes.
He should be.
Well, he's thinking about it in terms of...
Then he's holding the wrong tile then. He's holding the wrong tile then. What he's about to do is put in the swamp. Why doesn't he take the other one then?
Yeah, he could do that. And so he puts it down there, I'm assuming because he wants to make sure he has an income supply, plus the certificate bump. And so that will give him stuff so that he'll have more when he gets around to the cow building. And so he did what he did. I mean, you can criticize.
And I will.
Okay.
I think at the very least, if you're going to make the play, which is defensible, it's defensible, the positioning. Yeah. Absolutely. I don't think it's the right play, but you can certainly make a good case for it. But it's the wrong tile then.
Yeah, it probably should have been two tile. So anyway, I was looking ahead, and now I know I'm going to be able to get a builder for $7, and which is fine by me because then I can start getting some more buildings out. Plus, if I count the loops correctly, I might be able to be one of the people getting the $5 buildings when they start popping in the next go around. But that's going to be necessary for me to run fast. And so I still haven't accomplished a whole lot in the game, but I'm trying to get myself set up.
Yeah.
And Dan is getting more money.
So you see what Dan's setting up to do, right? Okay. And you get to go before he does. He's
Correct.
He's about to, if everybody's watching, he's got a pile of money.
Right.
He's going to go but the thing is he doesn't have enough, right? He doesn't have enough money. If he buys the two builders in the next turn,
right.
he needs 16 to buy them, right?
Right. Except that I get to go before him because I decided to run fast.
Yep.
So now I'm ahead of him in the loop.
And Eugene is now doing what you have to do at high level play of Great Western Trail right now. You have to keep the guy from getting that fourth builder early. And it turns out this feeds exactly into what you end up doing in your own game.
Correct.
But even if you weren't, you needed to do this.
Yeah, I had to take at least one builder.
Yeah. You just can't let the guy get his fourth builder, and we're only 3 rows down in the head market.
Right.
That's crushing. He's got it. He wins the game if he gets this. So Eugene, steps up and prevents Dan from winning the game, and also does so by buying a second builder, which, as I argued earlier, is never wrong.
Yes, right. That second build. Yes, this play is somewhat of a block, but also it's just a great play. Yeah. The second builder is really good.
There's nothing wrong with it. It opens up different things you can do with no matter what strategy.
But the other thing is, if you watch, Green's going to be the next player to deliver. He'll put 2 heads out. 2 of them will go on the $5 line. If I can keep running fast enough, I'll get to be able to, when I deliver, get another guy out. So the green player and the blue player will have their choices of the $5 workers the next loop around.
is the $5 worker that important versus a 6 or 7?
I think it is.
Yeah.
It, depending
Feels
on what
like
they,
it.
well, it
Feels like
depends on what they are. And so we know that if green puts out 2 people, whichever 2 he puts out, I can always put out a builder, which is going to show up on the $5 line. If Randy does, if you look at what's up top, if Randy decides to go engineer, when I deliver, I'm going to put out builder and whatever. And so the $5 line from left to right will be builder, engineer, builder of depending on what he does. I can always make it work out that way. And so but for me, it means I have to run around fast and almost not accomplish anything else. And I think the next turn that's the next turn that I had another decision point to make. So
in his commentary after the game, Randy was chatting with all of us. And this is an interesting aside, kind of, but it really gets into the details of the game. When Randy was talking about that last play he made where he went and built the building, what you don't see is he said that by using that card, I think this is the moment in the game where he said by using that card, by using the green card to get the $2 or whatever, it resulted in him not. He knew he was going to trigger the shuffle, right? And so then he wasn't going to be able to get. I hope I'm thinking of the right moment in the game, where he wasn't going to be able to get a cow into the first shuffle like he wanted to do, and he's the cowboy player, right? And so when he looked back on that, he said, and that's actually really important too. Is the management of your deck? I wonder if it's this moment or maybe the next loop. I can't remember. There's little things like that you don't pick up necessarily when you're watching, and so we'll try to catch stuff like that where we talk to the player afterward. He mentioned something that happened in his game that you won't necessarily see on camera or be able to pick up on.
So Eugene, you've been talking about moving fast. So in Great Western Trail, the moving fast, it gets you. The point of moving fast is to get ahead of other people in turn order,
correct,
and to deliver. But I think the builder and the engineer, they want to go slow. The cowboy wants to go fast because he has good cows and he can get points when he delivers. But the builder and the engineer, they want to go as slow as possible and hit every spot. Even sometimes you say, well, going slow, you don't get some actions aren't as good. But I think when you're a builder and engineer, you want to go slow.
I actually agree with you. And normally, so for me, this was a really weird game because I didn't really have a crystalline strategy in mind. I was just looking at where the workers were and trying to figure out which workers do I want to get to. And you'll notice that my game doesn't even take off until maybe the halfway point. I won't have accomplished hardly anything other than just have a bunch of workers on my board. So for me, this was very strange. But generally, I agree with you. You want to get all your buildings down using your workers and tax the heck out of people. So here I'm making my.
So we're gonna get a taxing building down that desert anytime soon?
No,
somebody should.
No, it's not going to happen yet.
I know.
It's not, and this is
spoiler.
Yeah. So I think this is the time where I was thinking, okay, so I know how the next loop is going to happen, and in my mind, I'm trying to remember if I remember correctly what I'm doing this time, and I think it is because. No, it's not this loop. It's the second one. So I have builders. Now I want to keep getting buildings down. Okay.
Yeah.
And I put this one down here because I'm not sure if it's actually going to collect money, but if it does, if we can get more, there's a swamp thing. In the number 1 spot, a swamp hazard.
The preview market, yeah.
Yeah, and so
Future market.
That building is always a good one. You always want to get that one out if you have builders because it may collect $2 for you, which is is really huge.
In my notes, I wrote right here of where you played that building. I said, not where I would have gone.
What a terrible play.
It might be, but
I'm
sorry also, but I have this incredibly long-range plan in mind.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
Eugene is a champion.
No. I'm looking two whole loops ahead. Okay,
but
I'm not kidding.
You're going to spring off that. Somebody's going to build in the 2 bumps up, so in the desert.
It doesn't matter. That's not the reason I had the building there.
Okay.
Eugene, what was your thinking? Why do you want to place
me
it
to
there?
see it?
Yeah,
okay.
what was your thinking?
Because there's going to be another building down next to Randy, and so I'm going to have a barrier so that people will have to pay me regardless. And sometimes people that do builders will do that. They will try to build tax buildings on both sides of a road, so that whether people go high or they go low, they'll have to pay you.
I don't agree with you about this.
Okay.
I don't agree with either one of you. By the way, when you're talking about builder can go slow, that's not the way I play. I play builder all the time, and I go faster than anybody else. It's just interesting. You can have real different ways of approaching the game.
Because the other thing is, let me just say this real fast, okay? The other thing is, the person that I feel right now is in the lead is Randy, because he has 3 workers of the type that he wants. And so I have to try to deal with him. And so I have to get set up. And so this is going to take 2 whole rounds to set up for.
It's too easy to think about the game in retrospect because I know how it turned out. Yes, at this moment in the game, if I'm Eugene, if I'm the blue player, I've got a guy diagonally from me who's got some cowboys out. He's a very strong player to begin with. Really good, really sharp player. And then I have the guy who's doing the thing I'm doing sitting right in front of me in turn order, possibly getting to the stuff that I want to get to right before me.
He won't.
So Dan stopped. We're going to go back to Dan's last time.
Yeah.
He stopped to buy 1 worker.
Right.
I think that's a mistake.
I think that was a huge mistake.
Yeah. We talked about this earlier in the video. I like buying 1 worker the first time, and then after that, every time it's always 2.
But he will
if
not.
At all possible.
But he will not catch up to me, and so I have this. Like I said, I keep talking about, I have this long-range plan because right now, in my mind, the next target is Randy. I have to do something. The guy that has cows always gets to buy cows. Generally, if you're playing a cow strategy, you're pretty impervious to other things that go on as long as you have money. And so what I'm looking at is, how am I going to bleed the money out of him so that he doesn't have enough money to buy tons of cows when he gets to the cow market. And so I have this thing in my mind, hoping that things will set up correctly in the next loop. So you'll see it.
Yeah, by the way, if you're wondering why there was kind of like a pause in the game right there, even though everybody's playing slow, but the reason there's a pause in the game is the picture taker came by. When you're in the final, they take a picture of you, so they pull you away from the table and get you in a group and all that.
That happened to me last year when I was in the final, winning the game. That happened to me. I remember that.
Did it happen to you too, Scott?
Were you? Oh, Dad, were you in that?
Yeah. Was I? Yeah. I missed the picture this year because I was the GM. And normally the GM's in the picture, but I was wandering off, doing something. We were getting ready to leave the convention the next day, so I was probably back in the room working a little bit.
So one thing Eugene was saying about he wants to drain the money out of the Randy's cows. So like I say, I harp on this a lot. Money in this game is everything, and the weakness to every strategy here is not having enough money. So if you want to stop anybody's strategy in this game is cut their money out. But I think in Builder you have to have money. In Engineer, maybe not so much. In cows, it's kind of in the middle. You need money for every strategy, but I think you have to have money early for Builder. Maybe you don't have to have as much money when you're Engineer early, but
to continue talking about the importance of the taxing stuff, I and put a period on the thing we were talking about a moment ago. Eugene and I play differently in a lot of ways, and Eugene is really good at doing what he just talked about, which is taxing you one way or the other. He's been doing that. You've been doing that you started doing that a couple of years ago, and it's really frustrating sitting on the other side of that. My own personal play style is not that though. I think it's okay to get one tax thing out, annoy your opponents a little bit, and then I think it's too much work to get not enough return on your investment for that second thing that really gets them both ways. I'd rather at that point be working on setting up my own game state, my own board, and hitting tiles that are going to help me in some way instead of playing defensively. But you are going to see Eugene play defensively this whole game, and it really works. It really worked. You played defense this whole game, and it was masterful.
Well, I played defense for at least the whole first half.
Yes.
Because I couldn't figure out exactly. I didn't feel like I wanted to play a cow strategy. I was sort of playing a builder strategy, but you combine the builder with something else. And so nobody was really taking engineers. And I thought, well, it's this late in the game. There's still a bunch of engineers out. Maybe I can play that as the second half of the game. And so that's what I was looking toward for the long run. Now, it seems weird because we're this far along and no one has moved their train yet. But I thought that there was still time to do it. And so, as usual, I'm delivering, not really accomplishing anything else, but I'm putting a hazard down specifically to hurt Randy. And then I get knowing that there's another second builder out, and between Randy and myself, we will get to, if we so desire, divvy up those 4 workers on the $5 line. But I also know in my mind, when Randy comes around, and he's coming around next to the building, hiring worker spot. If his game is cowboys, he really wants to get to the 4th cowboy. And so I'm hoping that he will end up taking a cowboy. He could shift and buy builders, in which case I'm going to have to figure out what to do. And I would probably shift to the engineers. But you'll see what ends up happening. I
want to mention the trade-off you just made for pace versus other things. If you noticed, Eugene just picked up all his cards. You decided to go in, okay? Mm-hmm. Right? You could have stopped off and bought a red cow there, mm-hmm. okay? And you got it into the shuffle.
Yep.
And that's actually really strong. That's a great play to do that. You're almost never sorry you did.
Right.
But you gave that up, and I'm sure you considered it, but mm-hmm. you gave that up because of what you're talking about the pace and about getting around that rondel to do what you really want to do.
Correct.
When I first looked at this board to start and I saw that the cow buying was right at the end there, it makes you think cow maybe I personally think cows is the weakest strategy. I do. But when you see that cow buying spot right before you deliver, just like you said, when you buy a cow, it goes right into your discard pile, and you shuffle it, goes right into your hand. So that maybe makes cows a little bit stronger in this game.
If you buy something and don't get it into your first shuffle, you are you're saying you're going to get it your 3rd time through your deck, right? I mean, if you mm-hmm. You're not going to see the card till mid game. It's a huge difference in pace. Right. So Randy springs that 4th cowboy,
right,
and it lets him pick up a hazard.
Yep, which fits completely into his game.
He felt like he had to do it. I still don't understand. So in my game notes right now, when I'm looking at my game notes that I wrote, I know that he's got 4 cowboys, but I think his position in the game right now feels pretty discouraging. I think the board state for him is bad. I don't understand what the building 1 is doing in that spot. He's not going to use it.
He's going to use it to get money.
How many times has he used it so far?
You mean he's going? What do you mean he's going to? I'm talking about.
He's using the risk action to dump a 1 to get $1, $2, and a certificate.
Okay.
Because he's going to be light on money the whole game, and so he needs ways of collecting money. Now, you said that certainly you can do it as taxes, but he decided not to do that.
So Randy placed that green building at the bottom there. How much money has it made him? How many times has he used it? He
will use it every time in the game. He will end up using it every single time.
The tile itself is not usable. He can't move his train back for $3 and he can't.
Correct.
So
correct. I think I completely agree with you that he should have gotten the number 2 building rather than the number 1 building.
Yeah, the risk action is
and maybe he wasn't thinking
is
about
really
it.
strong, but the $2 is fine. But you'd get $3 from your opponents every time they pass through the desert.
Well,
you wouldn't have to do anything.
The other thing is, if people decide to go down low, then he'll collect money from them. Because it's a tax building as opposed to the number 2 building not being a tax building.
We'll say if I'm the yellow player, that looks tempting for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yellow putting his building, his number 4 building where he did really hurt me because I had set up my building, my number 4 building where it was because I was hoping to bounce 2 spots from where I hit it so that I could get up to the worker space from it. But now that he's in the way, I can't do it.
Well, where Dan put his, Eugene, is
Yes,
where you
Dan.
should put yours. So.
Well, no, there was
that's
a
tough.
reason for this.
But by the way, did you all notice that Dan put out a TP in the 3 line on his delivery
Mm-hmm.
instead of sticking either one of those workers down there? He needs to. He needs to recognize you're going to buy both those $5 builders.
Right.
He just needs one,
Yeah.
but he needs it to be available to him by the time he gets to the space. So now
Correct.
there's no necessarily
Right.
that Brandon was going to indulge him in that. But as it turns out, Brandon's putting out Cowboys. So it turns out he would have indulged him in that. So when Dan sticks a TP down instead of some other thing,
Yes.
he
He could have had a $7 builder available to him.
He missed. So he's going to go another loop.
Yes, without getting
the
builder.
4th builder.
Right.
Right. This is you might think this is a small thing. This is a huge thing.
Correct.
That was an enormous mistake by Dan there.
Right.
He had to make sure that the $7 row was buyable by the time he gets to the tile, and he did the thing to make sure that it wasn't.
Yes. And if you look at his money supply, he has a ton of money.
He's ready to go.
Yes.
And now he's going to have to go through the whole loop again without
Right.
getting, So the building in the game that lets you buy ahead, maybe is that his out? Isn't that in there? It's
Yeah.
Building
5A.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's all the way he'll have to
you'd have to
work.
build it and then use it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's all the way at the top of the loop.
Right. I don't know. The swing of the game is if you can get the 4th builder played way early, like we were talking. I think
Right.
you're almost unbeatable. You're a real problem.
Right.
Meanwhile, if it's past the first cow market trigger where you're finally getting the 4th builder out, I'm not worried about you so much anymore.
Right. And you'll notice that Dan went down low through the swamp, and Randy did collect $1 off of his tax.
God, I'm being critical, aren't I? Really, I'm being really critical for somebody to make the game. Dan beat me, by the way. Dan beat me in the semi. He knocked me out. So just throw that in there. Who are these guys?
So then I think it is my turn coming up, and so I'm going to get what I want to get.
Yeah, and watch what you're gonna do. You ready? You know what you're gonna do here.
Yeah.
This is okay. So you see that Randy is where are we at? Where's that black hat? So Randy
He's on the TP spot.
Yeah.
He just got a bunch of money.
on his next turn. He is going to go to the building space and put a twin down there in the swamp so that he controls both those swamp spaces. Right.
Right.
You are far away from the building space, and so is everybody else. He's
Right.
By the way, I don't think Randy missed this as what would likely happen, but he probably didn't necessarily think you'd do what you do. But
Right.
as long as Eugene doesn't mess with him at this point, if you're Randy, he's thinking, okay, I got my 4 Cowboys. My board state is a little crappy, but I was thinking long term. On my next turn, I go to the building spot. I reserve that other spot down in the swamp. Now I can control at least the first turn of each swing through the rondel, and I'll be able to get some cert bumps and a little bit of money, and I won't be paying blue and red going up top. Things are cool. And then this happens.
And so this was the moment of truth. I'm looking at Randy and I'm thinking, if I let him get another building, that's going to be awful. So I have to do something about it. And so I buy my 2 builders. You get your 4th builder. You get to do a special build action for cheap. And I decide to do this. And this is specifically playing defense against Randy.
Yes. In my notes, I wrote, oh my God, all in on taxing, all in on defense.
Yes.
Not sure what I would have done. Not sure I would have done this, but it did work. I would have been less worried about Randy than you were at this point in the game, but maybe that's a mistake. You know?
I mean, I'm just looking at people's boards. He's the guy that has tons of workers.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's by the way, if you're drifting by a game of Great Western and you kind of look over at the board and wonder who's winning, usually the guy who has a whole bunch of workers is probably doing okay.
I think it's when you walk over and see like when I was walking around seeing all the tables, because I didn't even make the semi. That's sad. I didn't make the semi. But when you go around,
we'll talk about why later.
Yeah. I got something to say about that. But when you go around and you see, I wonder who's winning. I think whoever has the most tiles on the board, because tiles means taxing, means money.
There it is. Bam.
So I put that down. That in itself doesn't do much. Okay, if you look at building 6, it doesn't do a whole lot. But
it's okay. I think
it's okay.
I actually like that tile.
Exactly.
Because I like objective cards.
Yeah, you do. Okay, you're one of those people. But that means that I've got a space reserved, and then I can do something next turn.
Yeah. Because the first pass through the rondel is just about as miserable as it can get, especially if you're not moving your train or anything. If you don't have any engineers, I mean, what are you doing? You better be able to get to the thing where you throw 2 cards away for $4, and not only get to it, but have a pair of cards in your hand.
So because movement is still only 4 in Brandon's turn, he could not get to the building on the bottom left unless he went through the top of the swamp. Yeah. So red gets $1 and blue gets $2.
So he's red, but you get your 2 for that.
Yeah, I get my 2. He does.
He'd certainly rather paid Randy 1 and the bank 1.
Correct.
Really important when you're playing this game to think about movement points, stops, board position. I mean, that is, for me, one of the most things I'm concentrating on. Now Randy's a turn too late. Turn too late buying that building. So what can he do now?
Well, he still only has 1 builder, but yeah, he improves it.
Yeah.
And it's still a good building for him.
Well, yeah. All right.
Because of that, he can at least remove hazards if he needs to.
But he never does that in this game, pretty much. He doesn't buy any hazards, really. I'm going to check the final score real quick. He bought 2, it looks like, yeah.
What it at least allows him to do is to go there, pick up the cert, use the risk action, and then bounce to the next spot.
For sure. Yeah.
So
that's strong.
Yeah. So he'll actually get a decent supply of money if nothing else happens.
I don't. I'm probably not going to catch it like I did. I watched this the other day. I've only watched it once. As the GM, I probably should have sat there the whole game, but I was in and out for the live event. But I watched the video of this the other day pretty carefully all the way through, and the number I'm not going to be able to catch it each time, but the number of times in this game where the red player and the green player take what I call a dead action, where they just land on the tile and do 1 single auxiliary action, whether it's a neutral tile that they don't have the conditions for, or it's an opponent's tile or whatever, is frankly staggering to see that happen so often in a final. If that happens to me 1 time in a game, I feel like I've really blown it. And in this game, you're going to see, I think, red and green 2, 3, 4 times each.
Right.
Take a dead action.
Right.
That is why they got 3rd and 4th.
It is actually. It's the board. And it has to do with the board state. It has to do with positioning tiles around the rondel so that you make sure you always have a positive action. And
correct.
And I'm going to harp on that tile on the bottom left again. It's just it's conditional. And if you're a cow guy, and both those guys are cow guys, you are buying a bunch of different colored cows, and you're filling your deck with that stuff. So it's even less likely you're going to have a pair that match. Just as whereas a builder or an NG guy who isn't really adding a lot to their deck, maybe not adding anything to their deck, you tend to have a couple ones pretty often.
Right.
Pretty often.
Yep.
The cow guy, not necessarily.
So one thing I want to talk about is, so Dan had all this money and he just skipped the head buying spot. So he skipped it because he was looking for a builder and there was none. So I guess his thinking was, if there's no builder, I don't have time to stop.
Yeah, there's nothing attractive for him, so he needs to go around to the next loop. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, nobody ever wants engineers in this game. They're just sitting there. I'm thinking, okay, well, now I can start to shift gears and maybe start to accomplish something on offense.
I guess if a moment ago in the video, Eugene taps the green teepee. You have a tell, my friend. You have a tell. And I hope I catch it later because I remember I caught it the other day. Uh-huh. There's a moment where you tap that green teepee and you're like kind of thinking like what you have to do. Okay. And that green teepee turns out to be a 6-point green teepee later.
Yeah.
For you at a certain moment in the game.
Right.
And you were tapping it. And I was thinking, don't do that, man. Don't let everybody know how important it is.
So I went and I did my build action, which was just a single improvement for my level 4 building to a level 5 building, which is specifically to block the green player.
Oh my
and
God.
Now it's a $3 tax. And so
my God.
if he's
Randy
going to go,
hates you.
Yeah, Randy hates you now.
But also it means that everybody is going to be paying me
Both
one way or the other.
Yeah,
that's true.
This is what we're talking
Up
about.
or down. Okay, so but it was more specifically targeted at the green player, so that to keep drawing out his money supply, so that if he ends up buying cows all the way at the top, hopefully he'll only be able to get 3 or 4 points rather than 5 or 8 or 7 points each time he goes to the cow market, because he is getting set up. He's just about all set up. He has 4 cowboys, and that gives you lots of buying power. And I just feel like the only way to, and there he is. He does have a fair amount of money, but I'm not sure how long that's going to last. He has to keep figuring out how to get $8 or $9 each time by the time he gets to the top.
When we get a little bit of a lull in the play, I think usually in games of Great Western, and this was the case with the video last year, like for the first half of the game, kind of, it's every decision is super critical, and you have all these decision points and forks in the road. And then usually for the second half of the game, you've settled on the fork in the road you're going to take, and you kind of just run the engine then. And there's maybe a little bit less to talk about. So as we play out this commentary, we'll save some of the big picture stuff for later. I just want to mention that.
Yeah, I totally agree that early in this game, the decisions are a lot more important than in the beginning. This is an engine building game, so it starts off real slow. Then at the end, like you said, the decisions is kind of like, all right, I know what I have to do. The decisions are a lot faster.
And so that is the green player buying cows. He bought the purple cow that was available. I can't remember how many points it was worth, but it's a big cow.
And that was Dan, by the way, skipping the buy ahead action, as we talked about a little while ago, where he should have been buying his 4th builder if that had gone more his way.
Correct.
So he's got all this money. He's got 3 builders, so he's gonna do it this way, right? That's how he's gonna do it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the 5A building is a super cool building,
Yeah,
especially if you're
building.
doing engineers, because it allows you to buy a worker for $1 less and allows you to move your train.
Yep, I like that building a lot.
So for the people that are playing builders in this game, what we're looking at in the long run is 5A and also 10A, because 10A is the one that drives your certificate all the way down to as far as it can go. And that will be, in place of cows, how you get your cow value up when you deliver. And so that's what I'm looking for. But now I'm thinking about what else am I going to do? And I'm thinking about there are all these engineers, and I'm thinking...
It's sitting there on the $5 line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get to them first.
Again, you got the other 2 $5 things.
Yes.
How could they still be there?
Right.
Wait, has no one moved their train and we are halfway through the game?
Correct.
Oh my goodness, I just
Correct.
saw that.
No
Oh
one
my
has
God.
moved their train.
That's crazy.
I have not accomplished a single thing, but I think there's still enough time if I can shift to engineers.
How many games
That's
do you and I,
I've never
Eugene? How
seen
many
that
games do
before.
you and I play where we like get halfway through the game and we look at the engineer part of the game and go, it was there.
Yeah.
It was there. Why didn't somebody do it?
Yeah.
And we'll talk again. We'll talk big picture in a second half of this video. But I think the answer to that might be that we've come to the
And I think
conclusion maybe the train is
and
not
I
strong.
think that was my 3rd dump into Kansas City, if if I remember correctly. I've delivered 3 times.
Yes.
They've all been to Kansas City. So everybody has dumped in, I think, at least once or twice, probably twice.
You're the builder. You're supposed to dump 3 times, I think. Or, three is the standard, in my opinion, if that's the strategy you're taking. Because you always need the front end game money and the mid game money.
Right.
And then things tend to fall in place for you in the second half.
All right, so we're about to in this game we're about to hit the first cow drawer. So
you mean the fill the cow mark?
Yeah, fill the cow mark. So Eugene, you were in this game. Who do you think is doing well? Who do you think is doing bad? Who's the threats to win?
I genuinely feel like my game was about where I wanted it to be. I wasn't falling behind.
Oh my God, somebody moved their train. I don't mean to do that, but look at that. Look at that. That just took off. Oh, there it goes again. That's fantastic.
Again, I still feared the guy with the big cows. I mean, I know red player has some good cows in his deck, but he has paid full price for them. Yeah. He's trying to do it. He has 3 cowboys.
3's the wrong number again.
Right. Green has 4. And the builder is Dan still has his 3 builder. So at any point in time, they're all going to be able to do a superior action coming around to them. So I've done my really good actions, and I'm just hoping that, frankly, the rest of my points, I think, are going to be running my train, maybe get station masters and see what happens from there.
You've been playing defense. Do you feel at this point like you've taken care of Randy, the green player?
I have taken care of Randy. I literally went around the board. Who am I targeting this time? Who am I targeting this time? And frankly, the first guy I targeted was Dan, the yellow, because getting builders. And then I targeted Randy with the big tax building. Brandon, I couldn't do much about, but it felt like since he had fewer workers that there wasn't as much I could do about him. And so now Dan has bought his 4th builder, and now he's going to do a big build action. The other part of my game is that I'm eventually going to improve my 4A building eventually to 10A, because the other way that I'm going to support my delivery is through the certificates. And that will end up, that's one more thing that I have to deal with. But the rest of it is probably just going to be moving my train and seeing what happens.
Dan had a decision on the build he just made, by the way.
Yes.
He finally triggered it, and he went with the 4 down low rather than, I think the other option would have been to upgrade the building he's sitting on.
Yes. Well, he certainly wants to keep that one because that's a supply of purchasing workers, a discount supply.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I think that what he's looking to is he built what, 6B? Yeah, he built 6B, and I know that his eye is on improving that to 10A eventually.
So if you're going to 10, I think this is where I want to go with this comment. Mm-hmm. If you're going to 10, you don't put the 4 down there. He puts the 4 down there because he needs something to do down there. That's why I think he did that. Mm. And that's not. And I'm not saying that's wrong. But if you're trying to build to 10, he's given up on it in a way. To be able to get it and really use it, he needed to go from 1 to 5 on the taxer in the canyon, and then he can go from 5 to 9. Otherwise, it's going to take him forever to get to that 10.
Yeah. There's a whole thing about when you're playing builder strategy about when you're trying to get your level 10 building out, which is what most people do, whether it's 10A or 10B, and you sort of have to figure out which spot it's going to be and how you're going to schedule building up to it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if it's a level 9 building like 10A is, the most efficient way is to reserve your spot on and build a level 1 building. Then when you get your 4th builder out, improve that to a level 5 building, and then go to the builder spot and go from 5 to 9. And that way you're only taking 3 actions to get there. Otherwise, you feel like you're off cycle and you're improving. Like what Dan's doing is he's going to go from a level 4 to maybe a level 6 and a level 9. It's not quite as efficient.
The sequence is 159, right? So,
Correct.
by the way, a small thing. The red player, Brandon, he forgot to take the right side of that tile just now.
He took the TP?
He took the TP and he forgot to get 2 bucks or draws hand or whatever, I think. Yeah.
So now Randy's taking his move. He had to pay $1 for the tax. I mean, for the swamp hazard. He is going to discard a 1, I think, and get some money.
I think he should be buying hazards.
But he can't. He needs his money to buy cows.
He should be buying hazards, but that's just...
If he buys hazards, he won't be able to buy cows.
Yeah, maybe he should be buying hazards.
Hazards for the free action is almost as efficient.
Yeah, well...
And look at the, I like objective cards. Look at all those hazards on the objective cards.
Yeah.
Randy should be buying hazards.
So he's looking at his
Isn't it
money.
fun to sit around and say what Randy should have done? I am loving this, man. I can't wait to see him in November. It's going to be awesome.
God.
I give him back the Siegelman.
So he's still trying to figure out what to do, right? Because he knows after he takes this building that he's going to have to pay me $3 to bounce forward. And then he needs money. He's going to be -2 on his next movement to get to the worker hiring space. And then another -2 as he works through the canyon area. So he's going to be at least $4 more. So he's paying $7 in taxes at least every loop around from whatever money he starts with to both hire workers and buy cows. And so I feel like that has been an effective job.
So, Dad, with 5A or 4A, we say that when 4A is in the game, by the end of the game, those hazards are going to get bought up. That's when we play. That's usually what happens.
That's our local meta,
yeah.
I think.
But in this game, it just did not happen, I guess.
No.
Because
again and again they passed up on.
Yeah.
Because like Eugene is saying, they feel like their money is better spent somewhere else. By the way, the guys are futzing with the trains because there was a small mistake which they caught. Yellow had forgotten to move his train, and they're just figuring out what they get it worked out correctly. By the way, so, small thing.
So to your point, you guys were talking about removing hazards. Again, the yellow player and the blue player have no interest in removing the rock slides, so they're not going to. Yeah. The only people that can are the green and the red player, and the red player does not have his 4A building out, and so it's left to the green player to do it all himself.
I'd be tempted to snipe if I was the yellow player, I'd snipe one from the rock slide and still feel comfortable getting paid. There's a 4-point green one right there.
Yeah.
I might snipe one of those. The 4-point hazards, I think, money wise, it's good.
Yeah.
$5, 4 points. That's a good
deal.
Value. But I guess I would take one of those. I would snipe one of those grays.
It does tend to snowball too, by the way. So if maybe yellow does that, then Randy takes another one off the canyon.
And then all of a sudden,
because now things are starting to open up a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but like you said, Brandon did not put his.
He doesn't have his.
He doesn't have his 4A out.
No.
And so that makes it a lot harder to buy it. But
he's playing a very lean game. Not a lot of workers, spending most of his money on cowboys, and he has some good cows in his deck, but I'm not sure if he has a whole lot of flexibility.
We have not talked about Brandon a lot in this, so
yeah. By the way, Randy just took a dead action on that double aux on the bottom left tile.
Oh, yeah. He didn't get to do anything.
Yeah, he did one single aux,
for $4. Yeah. Right.
And I think you might be about to too. I think.
If I remember. I mean,
it's just.
I couldn't go far enough to do anything. Yeah. And I decided, I couldn't remember whether I removed a hazard. I don't think it was worth it for me. Because I'm looking ahead. Whatever I do on this turn is just stalling until I get to the next turn and hire those $5 engineers.
Oh my God, they've been there for 45 minutes.
Right.
Donte, you wanted to jump in on Brandon, the red player?
Well, so all I know, I don't know Brandon that well, and all I know about this game is that he got last with 41 points, and that's Eugene doubled his score with first place. So Eugene, what was Brandon doing wrong in this game? Why did he just not
I don't think he bought enough. I don't think he bought enough workers. I mean, he might have been so focused on a cow strategy and that the cows weren't there because there were two people fighting for them. Both Brandon and Randy were, and that's just how it is. I mean, but I don't know if you can. Certainly, other people have won playing with just a couple workers.
Yeah.
Certainly, Scott, you're actually pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But I think you need a lot of workers for whatever strategy you're doing to be more efficient.
Every time, like I said before, every time you look at a Great Western Trail table and you want to see who's winning, I say you look at the buildings and you look at the workers. So when I look at this, Eugene and blue and yellow have the most buildings, look like they're doing the best, and red and green have one building. So just from a quick glance, doesn't look like they're doing that well. But Dad, Eugene, like you said, or Scott, you are the best at making it work or getting a high score with no workers. I was never able to do that. I could never figure out how to get points with no workers.
It's certainly not what you choose to do. It's what you do when there's nothing going on for you and everybody else is. It's the alternative to being the second guy or second gal doing the thing. Like, you have. I find myself in that position when there's one guy doing cows, one guy's doing NGs, and one guy's doing builder, and so just the way the flow of the game came to me, I have to decide. I'm the fourth one to decide for whatever reason. It's just the way the game flowed out, and I tend to usually think that being the second person doing something is a loser. So I do try to do other things, and the other things usually involve buying hazards, TPs, objective cards. Squirreling out points like that. Maybe trying to snipe one station master and really make it sing.
So when you're doing that strategy, let's call it the no worker strategy.
I would call it the organic strategy.
I would call it the no worker strategy, which seems like a bad strategy.
It's doing what's available. It's not trying to force anything. It's just taking what's there.
Well, so people can learn.
So I like to name things.
What do you think is the focus when you have no workers? What are you trying to get?
Yeah, like I said, I think you want to look for
hazards and objective cards.
You want to look for efficient ways to get points, and I definitely start looking over at those objective cards. And by the way, that's one of the things I meant to mention when we were talking about the early setup of the game. If you looked at the objective cards, and they've sat there
the entire
pretty
game,
much forever.
The entire game.
I can't. I mean, this is one of the things, Eugene, I wanted to talk to you about because if I'm able to build in this game like you are and like Dan are both able to build, I am grabbing the heck out of those objective cards. Look at it; they're glorious. You sit down at the table and you're like, oh my god, I'm going to build a bunch of buildings, and the 4 A's in the game, so I'm going to buy a bunch of hazards. And by the way, I'll go ahead and take about 13 points for doing that too on those objective cards. That sounds good to me.
I will tell you that in this game, my focus was not the objective cards, but I'm thinking about where are my points going to come from? And I'm thinking about I'm probably going to spend the rest of the game doing engineers and hopefully run my train all the way to the bottom of the track. And if I can make that work and maybe get some more buildings out. If I'm going to be running engineers and nobody else is, maybe I can get some station masters. And I'm looking ahead to the station masters. So if you look to the top row of the station masters, Brandon has already taken one.
Yeah, he dropped his head for it, and so now he's
back down to 2.
Yeah. So I like the one he gave. I like the one he got. It's the one that gives you points at the end for the certs.
Yeah.
And it gets you an extra cert every time you deliver, which is awesome.
Right.
But my God, you're halfway through the game. You got 2 cowboys.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So the second one, the one that's next available, which is points for workers, is an awesome one. Maybe it's the best one in the game.
I would say it's the best one in the game.
Because it feeds into your strategy of getting workers anyway.
Yeah.
The third one I'm not so sure about, at least for the game.
I like that one.
I like that one.
I know you guys love it.
You like that one.
Just go away. All right.
It comes with 4 points usually.
It does.
Right in the top.
It does. But the way I'm looking at it is, okay, so now where are my points coming from? And I'm just going to be, I'm buying workers, I'm buying engineers, and now I'm going to start spending the rest of my game moving my train forward, hopefully getting station masters. And if I get a station master, I can remove my builder, my 4th builder, and hopefully buy him back so I can get the special build action again. And also make sure that I get both buildings 5A and 10A into the game. 5A is good because it allows you to buy workers at a discount, but also it's another one where I can move my train and then 10A is to move my certificates.
And so Dan has 5A out, but he's not going to be able to exploit it in the way you are because he's not buying NGs. So you're going to be able to
Did you really just say NGs?
I did, man.
Yes.
No, you are going to be able to hammer the train. There are going to be 3 places you can move your train when that's in the game.
Correct.
You know, the 2 that always come with the neutrals and plus 1 more.
Yes.
And also the another sweet thing about it is I'm always thinking about board state and like spacing and stuff. It makes me sad if I want to do train. It makes me sad if the 2 things that bump your train are real close to each other because it's disruptive to the flow of you getting around the board quickly.
Yeah.
The train bumping thing, including they're spread out nice. You know, so no, it depends on where you put yours, but the 2 initial ones, the neutrals are spread out nice, so that you can make that work without feeling like you're spending. Without feeling like you end up in a situation where you're going to have to take at least 1 stop on the rondel that isn't helping your game because the 2 things that were really good were right next to each other.
Right. So you've noticed that we're about halfway through the game. The trains have barely moved. No one has delivered anywhere but Kansas City.
It's insane.
Brandon, for the first time, is dumping a disc somewhere not in Kansas City. So the game is sort of really sloggy.
Do you think people who don't know the game well are thinking these guys are idiots?
These guys
are idiots, right?
They are. They don't know how to score points. But I at least feel like I'm sort of set up for doing what I want to do. I don't know whether it'll turn out all right.
There's somebody watching this at home who's played the game like 3 or 4 times. It's like, these guys don't know what they're doing. This is the World Championships final. I'm going there.
I'm coming next year.
I'm going to come next year and take them all down, man.
Yes.
Please do. We like a big crowd. We had, by the way, I should have mentioned this already. We had 89 people in the tournament this year, which was not record setting, but was still a really strong turnout. We're really happy with that.
How many was it last year?
It was 106, 2018, and that was its first year there, and it was kind of a little bit more of the new hotness. And so I was thinking, I think Eugene and I were talking about this before, but the convention, I was saying we'd probably be in the 70s, probably. That was my prediction. We ended up with almost 90s. So that was cool.
Who won it that first year? Was
that
some guy?
Yeah, some
guy. That me? Was 106 people?
Some guy
got a rectangular piece of wood.
Oh my God! Yeah, isn't that terrible?
Yeah. All right. A legend in his own mind. It's good. Yeah.
All right, so Randy.
By the way, Randy is the cow guy. I'm really, really being critical in this video. I'm so sorry. I'm being a complete dick. Randy is the cow guy. He just went to the auxiliary action, and he doesn't have the draw. He has not taken his second disc off the draw your hand action.
Oh,
that's crazy.
He cycled 2 cards.
He had something in mind early that caused him to. No. I'm saying he made a mistake, and it wasn't a misplay or anything. I'm saying that he is not set up now to draw his hand as he obviously should be as the cow player.
Right.
He obviously saw something early in the game where he thought, I'm going to move that train. He probably was thinking about that first station master, which is real strong for the cow guy for sure.
Yeah.
All those ones that come with a permanent cert are great for the cow guy.
But because of it, he only gets to cycle 1 card.
He only gets to cycle 1. That's actually,
which is bad for the cow
It really
player.
is, yeah.
You really want to be moving your cards.
He needs to take care of that. And the problem is usually on your 3rd loop, you're dropping a black disc.
Yes.
So that means he's going to be on his 4th loop before he can get the ability to draw 2 cows. That's tough.
Right.
That's awkward.
Yeah, a lot of times when people drop their first disc, it's almost always either get the extra dollar or cycle the extra card. And I think for people that play the cow strategy, more than likely they should be doing the cycle card first.
I disagree. I think it should be second. But,
okay.
I just think the flow of the game is such that you don't need it
as much.
You don't need to start drawing your deck as the cow guy right away.
That's
you need
true.
You need to seed the cards. You need to buy. You actually, I think it's the opposite guy, right? You want to stall a little bit and try to dump as many of those. If you could get, for sure, if you want to get two cows into that first shuffle.
So one thing about that first disc, I know this is a little weird, but I think in every strategy in this game, no matter what, and in every game, your first disc should always be the train bumper, dollar to bump your train. In every game I play this, if I'm doing cows, if I'm doing engineers, I always, every time, my first delivery, I get that dollar off the train. So why do I do that? Well, you do that so. Well, I guess in this game it's not as evident, but you want to get those first. What are they called?
You know about the station masters?
The station masters, yeah. You want to get those
okay.
first station masters because they can help you throughout the entire game and give you direction.
Okay.
So if it's a decision between taking a disc off to get that extra dollar in your auxiliary action, or to get a chance to get a one of the special tiles there, I think you want to bump that train.
Donte is the guy that doesn't buy the small market in the first chance at Puerto Rico. He's the guy who's going to do something off script, because I don't think either of us agree with what you just said, but I agree that it is the alternative play as opposed to taking the one off the buck.
So right now I have 4 builders and 4 engineers. Getting the 4th engineer allowed me to get an extra worker for a discount. And so now I was able to move my train into a station house and exchange it. So I was able to get the station master that I really want, which is the one for workers. And I was able to dump off my 4th builder, which means that if I can buy another builder, I'll get to do another special build action.
So, by the way, in the string of me pointing out things that I think were mistakes by other players who are better and more successful than me, you notice what Dan did on his last play. He stopped on the. I know he's sitting on the tile that's his own tile. It's the the move to space. But no, his actual last play was to go ahead and use his level 4 building down above the swamp. Where you pick an objective card up.
Yeah. I like that building.
Okay, so he picks the objective card up, and if you think about it, one of the worst tiles in the game is the one that is sitting up in the canyon, which is the one that lets you play an objective card as if it were if it were a cow, and take 2 cert bumps, and then move your train back 1 space and get $3. The reason that tile is awful is because nobody ever does it, because you never have an objective card in your hand. The only time you ever have an objective card in your hand for sure is when you do what Dan just did, which is to pick one up and put it in your hand.
Right.
So he could have set that up, and he's also has his train fairly purposelessly on the 1 space, so he could actually use that tile. I'm looking up into the canyon, and I'm thinking, here's a chance to actually use that tile, because actually 2 cert bumps and $3. That's not bad. That's not bad.
Right.
I mean, that tile is terrible, except in the one time right now where you could actually do it. What he ended up doing though was he had the objective card he picked up and put in his hand, and he can play it right away if he wanted to, and he did. And it's the one that lets you skip through other people's stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so isn't the mistake he made, right? He skipped through your thing, Eugene.
Right.
Which was, I think that's actually a good play too.
Yeah.
Okay. You know,
Absolutely.
if I'm saying 2 cert bumps and $3 is great,
Yeah.
it's also great to save $2 and not give it to your opponent.
Of course.
But he shouldn't have put it on his own tile, right?
Right.
He should have put it on the one below, so
Yeah.
that he could use his own tile. He's got tons of money.
Yes.
He's got tons of money. He needs to be. He picked up the objective card. He picked up the objective card, and played it right away. The one we're talking about, which is you're staring at it. It's on his board. It's 2 hazards and 2 buildings, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that he's bought 1 hazard, and I think he may have a hazard on the card he started with. I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that.
The thing, though, I think is he has, if I'm looking at his board correctly, he has 5 builders.
Sure.
So he wants to improve that building to the 10A building.
Yeah.
That's his spot that he's reserved for it. And so the next time he goes to do a build action, assuming he has enough money, he can change it. And so that was just a placeholder. That's just a springboard to get to the 10A building.
I think there's not enough hazard buying in this game. I think he should have sniped a hazard, and I don't know that he ends up. He probably scores the objective card, but he could have taken care of a little bit of the work involved in getting it done right now. And then, having done that, there's another objective card sitting. I like objective cards.
Obviously so.
But no, I'm to their points. They're just sitting there.
You're right.
Why not?
You're right.
Why not?
Most people don't look at objective cards as an auxiliary part of the game. And I give you lots of credit for incorporating that as a main part of the game.
It's a dead action early in the loop is that first tile there for him. So he's never going to stop on it. But if you stop on there and get a 3 or 4 or 5 point card, that's a pretty good turn.
Yeah.
That's not a bad turn.
Yeah.
What do you guys think is one action in this game is worth how many points? What should you be doing on average? How valuable are your actions in this game?
Why not talk? Let's do some big picture stuff.
Okay.
So I think that.
Oh, and by the way, let me just interrupt real fast. So Dan just bought a builder, his sixth builder.
Yeah,
cost him a bunch of money, but
he
he did exactly what he wanted to accomplish, which was get the 10A building. So that building before it was just a springboard for it. And now he's set up for what he wants to accomplish, which is drive asserts down to the bottom each time, and then springboard 5 spaces, which gets him to the building across from the desert. And so he'll be able to get very far around the board in his first turn.
By the way, just so you all know that we know, there are a string of mistakes that just occurred. On Red's previous play, he stopped on Eugene's building and took a dead action, which is a single auxiliary, and this happens all the time. In his mind, it was like an auxiliary action, so I think he took $2 instead of 1. Okay, so that's a small thing. On Randy's previous turn, not the one he's doing right now, but his previous turn, he went through the canyon and did not pay the yellow or blue player their taxes. A small thing there. And then what's about to happen, and you're going to see that jump.
This is a big thing.
This is a big thing. You're going to see a jump cut in the video because we caught it. Randy took $5 for his delivery, and then absentmindedly took it again. So these things happen. And we can talk more about that later. But there's a little mistake. This one we happened to catch. Unfortunately, we missed the 2 that came before it, and you're not going to catch everything. That's just the way it is. So we did catch this. You're going to see the video stop as we all kind of thought about it for a second and said, "Hey, let's just stop the video. We're recording this after all. Can we just pause it, Scott, and roll it back and see what happened? Make sure we get it right." And even with all that care, we did not get everything right in this game, but it was good. It was a good catch. So we got one less thing wrong.
Right.
These things happen. I don't really think it's a big deal. There's going to be little mistakes in a fiddly game like this. $1 here, $1 there. It's unfortunate, but it's part of the game.
So now Dan I think he has buildings at the top that are much better than what I have, but I feel like I have good buildings down at the bottom, and I'm just going to be concentrating on running my train as fast as it can or as far as it can, and if I can pick up station masters along the way, I'll do it. But my main goal at the very, very end is to try to get the train all the way to the bottom down the right side and score most of my points that way. And what's Dan? Dan he's taking more TPs, more money, right? And nobody. And then that was the cut right there.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to figure out about Randy and his money, and you'll notice that he removed $5 from his cash pile.
in the video, it just disappears, right?
Yeah.
Well, so let's take a break from the real close turn-by-turn look, and because I think this is a good moment to do it, and talk about some of the bigger questions. We also haven't introduced ourselves officially. This is the time to do that.
Hi, my name is Donte, the 2018 Great Western Trail champion.
The world champion, right? So it's good. So, we were talking before the video, before the recording today. We were thinking about who are we pitching this to? And last year when we made it, we were pitching it to an audience of. I mean, you all chip in, feel free. But we were pitching last year when we thought about doing this. We were pitching it to an audience of people who were interested in thinking about strategy of the game and hearing about big and small picture strategic play for this game. I mean, it wasn't just so much like, hey, let's watch the final and talk about what these guys were doing, but also talk about the why they were doing that and how the game's evolved and things like that. And so now when I think about making this the same thing a year later, so who are we pitching it to now? It's going to be that same audience, I think. And so one of the things I definitely wanted to to ask you guys and speak a little bit about myself was, so what's happened, if anything, in the greater strategic picture of this game since the last time we did this? If you sat through the 3-hour video last year, and here you are, you made it this far through this one, can we tell you anything that's been going on in sort of the tournament scene since? Let me talk about that, and I'm talking a lot now, I know, but so I'll ask you to chip in a second. But I'm talking about this in 2 ways. Number one, literally what's happened in the tournament scene. The tournament scene for Great Western Trail, this is not a game that's available online. And there are 3 real places to play it in a serious way with a good crowd. And that is here at Seven Springs in Pennsylvania in late July every year at WBC, World Boardgaming Championships. Also, you get a chance to play it in, mid or early November every year in Pikesville, Maryland at EuroQuest. And then you're also going to get a chance to play in the tournament at PresCon, which is in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's usually at the very end of January, early February. Is that right? Or is it
late February?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Late February.
Check that, late February.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you usually coming home on March 1st or thereabouts, yeah. So since we played this a year ago, and that was the final I was in that, and Andrew Emmerich, Donte won it, as he's mentioned 3 or 4 times already on the show here, and Anthony Saccenti was his bro was the other player at that table. Since then, we went to EuroQuest, and it was Eugene and I and Chris Wilds made the final in that. We had a 3-player final because Eric Engelman, that goofball. I love Eric. He truly a lot of people say they don't care about winning and losing and whether they got the trophy. Eric Engelman really doesn't care whether he got the trophy. He made the final, and he said to me, Scott, I got something else I want to do during that time slot, so I'm not going to play in the final.
That is, wow.
I was like, oh my God. I was actually a little I wasn't really grumpy. I was a little grumpy at them because I think the game is best at 4. But I didn't make it. I regret this. I should have made it a 4-player final, but I didn't have any mechanism for doing that. I hadn't written anything down, and so it felt a little weird to just sort of make that up at the moment and say just pick somebody. And you almost feel like as a GM, and I was in the game too. I was in the game, so it felt it's a little awkward to kind of feel like I'm picking my opponent or something like that. So I just went with the default, which was okay, fine, we'll have a 3-player final, and that was a really interesting game. Eugene whipped me and Chris. Chris and I cut each other's legs off trying to go builder because we were coming out of the meta of the game at the time was the builder was just winning everything. There was nothing as good as that. And so he and I just killed each other trying to build. Meanwhile, Eugene did other things and won. And you won by a lot, if you remember that game.
I do.
You probably won that by 20, right?
I remember that you bid to go first, made one of the biggest mistakes I've ever seen in where you put your first tax building down, and sort of handed me the game. Chris and I killed each other. I still remember it well. So anyway, that was EuroQuest. We come out of EuroQuest and we go to PresCon a few months later. PresCon, the final was awesome too. You and I battled. You and I ran each other into a heat. Right. And I actually had one of the best games I ever played in that heat. If you remember, you and I fought hard in that game. Yep. And then we met again in the final. It was you and me and Donte and Dave Platnick. Correct.
And at that point I had made every final of every tournament of Great Western ever.
That can't be true.
It is true.
It is true.
I know I'm being very immodest.
You've been talking a lot. You've been riding your own horse here for a long while.
I'm being very immodest right now. It's actually something I'm really proud of. It was a great run, but I had never won one. There was my 7th final, 7 in a row, but I'd never won one, and I played I think the best game I've ever played in that final, and I managed to get past Eugene.
That was a great game.
It was a wonderful game for. I really had to work for that, and I think it was you first, me second at EuroQuest.
You were first, yeah,
and then it was me first, you second.
No, Donte was second.
Donte got second. Oh,
yes, at press.
Was he in the game?
I've been.
He was actually in.
Is he in the room now too?
Yeah. Can't believe I'm listening to all this.
So anyway, So that's what's literally happened in the quote unquote tournament scene since then. And both those tournaments, by the way, had great turnouts. One of the little things we've done is permit people to play the expansion, Rails to the North. Mm-hmm. I don't have a strong feeling about that. It's not something that I don't know that expansion. I played it once just for a laugh, but I do want people to enjoy the tournament and have fun. That's the most important thing. So we've permitted people to self-select for that. You're certainly not required to know it, and you would never be seated at a table and be expected to play it or whatever. But we offered it as an option, and we always had. I think in every heat we had a couple tables who did it, which is cool. So that's what's been going on, sort of like literally in the tournament scene. What's happened, however, probably much more importantly, that people would like to know, what's happened in the game meta in the year since last WBC. Has the game strategy evolved? I'm still talking. I know. Let me leave you where we were in 2018. If you watch the video of this from last year, where we left you was Builder is winning. Builder's winning. Build in the swamp with the Southern strategy is very strong. People have to actively stop it. It is the default go-to strategy. It doesn't always win, but it won the final and it was winning. It was winning all the time back then. Are we still there, or has the game evolved any? What do you all think?
All right. So one thing I will say is when new players play this game, new players go Cowboys. I think Cowboys is easy strategy to play. Builders is the hardest. I think Builders is the best way to play. And I think that's what wins finals. That's what wins this game.
You're making an argument the meta hasn't changed a lot.
So I don't think that it's changed a lot.
Now, or at all, maybe? Has it changed at all?
Well, I hope it's changed at all, because if this is a game, it's going to improve. The players got to get better. And if this wants to be a lasting WBC, I hope the meta has changed. Now, saying that, I don't think it has changed that much. I still think the Builder is the best strategy. And so I think the Builder is the best, but it's just Cowboys and Engineer. Cowboys is really easy to play. When you do Cowboys, you're buying cows, you're scoring them for points, and that's pretty much it. When you're doing Builders, there's a lot more to think about. You have to decide which buildings do I want to buy, which buildings do I want to use,
where to put them. Right?
Where to put them, I think, is what has truly evolved in the last year. I think the better players put a lot more thinking into where you put your buildings. Do you want them as jaxes? Do you want them to try to set up so that you can bounce all the way around the board super fast? I still think it is probably the most powerful strategy because you have more control over what's going on over the whole board if you have lots of your buildings out.
So let me ask Donte this. You said now's the time to tell people maybe why you weren't in the final this year. Donte, why weren't you in the final this year?
So I am one of the greatest control players in the world.
To be fair, he has won 2 tournaments?
Yes,
and been in many finals. And
I've won at PressCon. I won at WBC, and
that's 2. Yes.
Just hold on.
I'm holding.
Now, just hold on.
Holding.
I haven't entered in many Great Western Trail tournaments. I haven't entered in that many.
Yeah, he doesn't usually make it to EuroQuest because he's got high school and now college.
He's a kid.
Yeah. So why didn't I make the tournament here? Well, I haven't lost a in-tournament game of Great Western Trail in a long time. Okay.
A streak that is actually still intact, for what it's worth, as you're about to learn.
So I played in there's 3 heats at WBC. There's 3 heats of most games, but for Great Western Trail, there's 3 heats. Yeah. I played in 1 heat, got the highest score out of the whole tournament, had the best individual game, and then I was busy. I got stuff to do. I can't be everywhere at once.
We're laughing, but your play is ranked because we have to cut to 16. It's not enough just to count wins and losses. You also are ranked based on your percentage victory and things like that. And so, jokes aside, at the end of the first round, Donte had won his heat by a crushing amount. He was way, way, way in first. At the same time, I warned everybody who played that, because we were cutting to 16, you would almost certainly need at least a first and a second. And as it turned out this year, just to cut ahead to the spoil a little bit, there were even there were even people who had a first and a second who did not make the top 16. You really had to have a first and a second, and they had to be strong first and seconds. You had to have a good margin of victory and, not win by 1 point or whatever. So at the end of the first round, Donte was destroying everybody. And so then what happened, Donte?
Well, what you're saying is, I do think that's the way to do it, or at least for this tournament. 2 wins, cut to 16 players. I think the semi for this game should be filled with nothing but good players. And I didn't play I only played in 1 heat, so there was no way that I was close,
You skipped to the other 2 heats.
Well, I hate, when you got girls that want to get in the pool, or
I didn't know if we were going to talk about that on mic or not.
You got to set your priorities straight, and I felt like
your priorities all week were clear. Yes. Clear to everyone.
You're 17. Your priorities are X. 18. When you're 62 like me, your priorities are not X.
Oh my goodness, man! The kids were coming in. I won't say he was coming in late. He was coming in late at night, and I'm not a late person. I'm an early person. So I didn't see Donte a whole lot during the 9 days we were at WBC.
So I will say for myself that I have won my first heat, and my second heat I decided to try something different. I came in 4th with a grand total of 30 points. 30 points.
The world champion scored 30 in
30 points.
Oh my God, that was fun.
I think I probably could have taken a nap that whole 2 hours and still scored 30 points. Yes.
Before we lose the thread, let's jump back to because I haven't gotten Eugene's opinion, and this I actually think this is probably one of the things that people are wondering about. I've actually gotten requests to answer this question, which is the state of the game in the past year. Has the meta evolved? What's your perspective on that? What do you think?
I think the people that play Builder have gotten deeper into the game in terms of where exactly to put your buildings. I think that's becoming a even more critical part of the game. It still feels like a good building strategy is probably the most successful strategy. I've seen people score 50 points in cows and they still can't win the game. I will say oddly, in both the semifinal that I played right before this, I did this semi-hybrid of engineers and builders and ended up winning my semifinal. So, but it wasn't so much a straight builder game, but an engineer game. And I certainly used to play engineer all the time, and then it was not winning. But I guess I feel like I find that this particular game is always different. I feel like there's always more to examine, whether you're playing the expansion or not. I think the base game is perfectly fine the way it is. And given the setup, since the setup is different, it changes what the game is. I mean, this game is never scripted. And so I think there's just always more to investigate. I don't find any game, this is all the same as what I just did before or something like that.
So let me chip in a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. That's exactly what I thought you'd say. And I get to play Eugene in this game all the time. And it is really interesting to sit across from you when you play this, because you just kind of stubbornly refuse to do the straightforward, obvious winning approach, and you're always trying to make something work. Mm-hmm. So I've been watching you really tinker around with cows the past year, right? You've really been trying. And meanwhile, this is probably we haven't talked about this exactly, but it's probably been discouraging to you, because a lot of times you'll sit down and play me, and I'll just play a dumbass straight up builder game and blow you away.
Yes.
I mean, I'm a great man for a pickup game.
Freely admitted.
We played earlier today. I destroyed you all in that game. That was awesome.
Stop rubbing it.
I know, it was good. It felt good. It still feels good. I'm just bringing my step all day. But jokes aside, you always continue to push and try to innovate, and I don't think you have broken through on making cows work still.
No.
And I've really watched you try for the last year.
Yes.
I mean, we came out of WBC last year, and I saw you starting to say, because we saw Andrew have a really strong game last year.
Correct.
I mean, Andrew absolutely could have won the game.
Yeah.
He got 50 plus.
Andrew had 54 points in cows last year and still lost.
It was an amazing game by him, though. I mean, and I think it was maybe a little eye opening for you and me to watch that, because we saw that and we're like, yeah, that can win.
Yeah.
And I'd gotten to a place where I thought, you just build and win, don't be cute. So my own personal opinion, so I'll answer my own question now. It's my turn. I think the meta is largely the same, to be honest. When I sit down at the table, if I'm able to build and have my way, I feel like it's going to be an easy win. I played this game we're watching right now differently than a lot of you. When 10A is in the game, I think I'd have tried to do a simple 10A rush. Mm-hmm. I'd have bought a few cows, rush 10A, not worry about spamming buildings out, not worry so much about the taxes. Fire my way around that loop as fast as I can and try to fill up the delivery row up there. Like, you all refuse to deliver anything up there. I mean, look at that. We're right. Game's 2/3 of the way through and nobody's delivered anything. I just feel like the game's still settled into that place for me. I'm very interested in seeing if you can make cows do something. I will say one other thing, and then maybe this is something you might agree with me about. It does seem like train strategy is fading as a strong approach. I do not see that winning consistently at all. I'm not saying never. You can absolutely win this game any of the three ways. I think it's the least effective of all these days. I don't know if you agree or not.
I probably agree with you if you're considering that your main strategy. I mean, so for me, like what's going on, I know that we've been yapping a lot for the last 30 minutes while a lot of the game is developed. And let me just say real fast that everybody has basically got their game set up. They're moving around the board, doing whatever they were trying to accomplish. You know,
if you haven't set up your engine by now, you're not.
Then you're done.
Yep.
Okay. And so for me, I'm moving my train. I'm actually getting the 2 station masters I really wanted. And so each time I've been able to drop a builder, so that allows me to do a special build action later in the game. But given to your question earlier, Scott, I do agree that the engineer strategy, if that being the main focus, is probably the weakest of them. However, that can certainly be a secondary strategy to a builder. And it's definitely true that when I play and I'm not doing building and everybody else has all these buildings on the board, I feel like I'm just walking through, I'm walking with lead boots on and I can't get anything accomplished. And so I think even though you're not playing a straight builder strategy, you have to get some buildings out yourself, either to collect some taxes and keep up with the money, or not fall too far behind, but especially to put them in places so that you're always having something efficient to do as you move around the board. I mean, the worst thing to do is walk through the board and have 1 or 2 of your actions on your loop be dead actions. Then you know that you should have gone and played, Terraforming Mars or something.
What a great game.
Whatever.
Great game.
Blah, blah, blah.
Hey, did you guys know that I got 4th in Terraforming Mars this year?
You really?
Is that right?
Yeah.
I think you told us 117 times.
Yeah.
So.
All right, well, here's a question. So if we all agree that builders is the best strategy, if you're going to do builders, like Eugene in this game, you're doing builders / engineer. Mm-hmm. So what is the best to do, builders / cowboys or builders / engineers?
Probably builder engineer, but
agree.
I'm not positive. But like as you were watching this game go by, there was only one builder, so you have to figure out, well, what are we going to do? Dan got the first builder, so how's the rest of your game going to develop? And so I tried doing what I did, which was basically run around the board and just get guys and not accomplish anything else until I could see what else was going to happen.
Just for those who are watching super closely and auditing our every move, I want you to know that we are aware of a couple other mistakes that happened here and there. For instance, about 10 minutes ago in the video, Randy did a small thing. He did the double ox where you draw 2 cards, except he still hasn't removed the disc from the thing that lets you draw 2.
No.
Yeah.
He probably in his mind he was like, I'm sure I removed that like about 2 hours ago. So that was a small thing. And then a slightly bigger thing that we do have to mention. This happened in last year's final as well. When Eugene built his, will you trigger this happened already, or is that coming up?
It's probably coming up.
It's either coming up or it's a little bit.
Yeah,
before.
It's coming up.
Where Eugene has a long, complicated turn, and one of the things he does is trigger the
special build action.
The special build, but he doesn't pay the 4 for that part of it, the little thing. And so there's little mistakes here and there. these things happen in these games. As I said already, I'll go ahead and just do a slight rant here and say I was really thrilled with all the commentary we had on last year's video, but there were a couple comments about, oh, this guy made a mistake here, this game's invalid, and shit like that. And I was really grumpy about that, actually, to the point of I almost considered pulling the video down, because we're not gonna go back and say mistakes were made, things don't count, and this, that, and the other. You have no idea how careful these guys were trying to be in this game to get everything right. They were talking through their turns, doing everything really methodically. I was in and out of the room, so I'll forgive myself for missing some stuff. Although we caught one big thing, but you can't see this, but the table is surrounded by onlookers. Rodney's actually sitting right to the left of the screen right there, watching the whole game. We're really trying to get it right. And you still make some mistakes, these things happen.
Yeah, I mean, we're really trying not to. I'll also say that around now, it's got to be around midnight on Saturday night.
Oh, yeah.
Of the 8th?
Was this day 12?
It's day 8 of 9 of the convention.
And Saturday is a big day at WBC. Several of us, have been playing heats or semifinals or finals, and everybody, frankly, is a bit loopy. Not that excuses playing suboptimally, but we were trying our best, really trying our best not to make mistakes and certainly not to cheat or anything like that. And so, I'm really sorry for any mistakes that ended up happening.
Yeah,
So.
By the way, this is a moment in the video. I think this is the moment where Dan was asking the question about whether you could copy a building action. The building that's as the 8B, right?
8B.
Yes.
8B is the one that it costs $6 and it lets you copy an adjacent tile. And he was asking whether you could put it. This is a weird question, and it's never come up. And I wasn't in the room at the time, so I wasn't able to rule on it. But he was asking if you could put it. He ends up doing something else, which is probably better play. But he was asking if you could put that copy building in the space right before you go into Kansas City. And so his question was, is it technically adjacent to both the cow market and, even though it's kind of squiggling the line around and going backwards, Eugene's blue buy ahead, move your train building?
5A.
Yeah. So if you're following me, it's that, that's that last spot before Kansas City that's still open. He said, if I put my copy building there, could I copy Eugene's building? And if I'm ever asked to rule on that and I'm in the room, I'm going to say yes, because if you read the rule and you want to be a real rules lawyer about it, it doesn't really say anything in the rules about it has to be in the same flow of the rondel. It just says that there's no other space, open space between the two tiles. And in this case, even though it's kind of wonky, I would have to say, yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah, and when he asked about it, I think I was the one that told him, no, you cannot put it there, because I was under the impression that it had to be a space that you would have walked over.
Sure, yeah.
In order to use.
And that's the intuitive reading of that rule, probably.
Right.
But by the letter of the law, I think you got to say yeah.
Yeah, we've walked back. We went back and looked at the exact wording of the rules, and it doesn't say anything about it being in the same path or anything. It just says there has to be no other building intervening or no other empty space intervening.
Yeah, right. Anyway, small thing. Even in the final, we're still getting these weird rules that come up.
So getting back to the game. So Eugene, you ended up getting 34 points in stations. And that was 34 of your 84 points.
Right.
And I think when you want to ring the bell, I mean getting to the end of the engineer track, you want to do that as one of your last actions of the game. There's no reason to rush that. You want to get your builders first. You want to get out your buildings. Then you want to buy the engineers, Eugene, just like you did. And so if you're looking at Eugene's setup right now, and how is Blue going to get 34 points in stations when there's 3 rows left? So Eugene, how did you pull that off?
So I was looking ahead. I know how many you can look at where the worker market is and assume that every time someone delivers, there's probably going to be 2 more workers that fill up. And so you can count out the number of loops around the board you have left. And now it's somewhere either 2 or 3. And then if I have I probably have 5 or 6 engineers. So every time there's 3 with my building 5A in the game, I can move my train 3 separate times. And you can sort of do the count and see whether with the engineers I have, that's enough to make it down to the bottom. The bottom ringing the bell is space number 39. Right now I'm on space, something like 16 or 17. And so if I can move it 15 spaces, each loop, I should certainly be able to make it. And then the question is, how many times do I want to dump into station houses along the way, which may slow things down a little bit.
Now, how important do you think it is to ring the bell? How important is it to that last spot?
If you're playing an engineer strategy, I think it's critical.
Absolutely.
I think it is. I don't know if you can win without it, because hitting the very bottom is worth 9 points, plus you get to dump somewhere else back behind you, so it's probably worth 14 or 15 points. And so missing it is incredibly costly.
You guys hear me say this all the time, so nothing new for you. But if you're listening to the video, there's nothing that makes me happier is to see one of my opponent, send their train, go all the way around the corner, all the effort that went into it, and then not get a bunch of points for that. I mean, that's almost all. Well, it's not almost. That's always a loss. At a good table, you've lost the game if you send your train hurtling around and then don't make it pay.
Right.
You need to get in the 20s, if not 30 points from that strip.
Now, here's a question. I still want to talk about ringing the bell, but in this game, how many points are money worth? If you have $6, how many points would a good player be getting for it?
If you have $6?
Say you have $6, how many points should you convert that money to?
I want to answer. Eugene, take a pot of this, but I want something I want to say about this. No, I'm glad you asked this question.
I mean, there's a station on the right side where $6 gets you 8 points, 7 points, I think, something like that. For $6, you can also buy, if you're playing a cow strategy, you can get a purple cow, which is worth 5 to 7 points. So I'm assuming that you need to be doing something similar to that.
You can buy a hazard. You can buy a 4-point hazard for $5. Right.
So when you ring the bell, it's a $3 to get 9 points.
Right.
And that's the best money to points ratio in the game.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think when you guys say ringing the bell is critical, I think it's more than critical. $3 for 9 points, plus you get $3 back, and you drop in another spot.
Right. It's basically a free 9 points plus paying for another station house.
I think if you're doing engineer strategy, you have to ring the bell.
This is an awesome question. I want to. It makes me think of something I really wanted to get on this recording this year, because there's something I was thinking about. So I think it's the genius design. I love this game. Anyone past a level of a novice at this game understands that the flow of the value of the dollar in this game changes over the course of play. So at the very beginning, $1 is worth far more than $1 worth at the very end of the game. That's easy. That's easy stuff. So when you talk about Donte's asking the question, what a point is worth.
So what is money worth?
The first way I would answer that is what point in the game are we at? Yep. Because early in the game, points aren't worth nothing. I'll take -6 of them, please, for $6. But because the game ramps up in the way it does, this is something I've been thinking about. We bid for turn order, and I've always felt like one of the main things I'm bidding for. I know when we talk about, at the beginning of this video and last year's video, we talk about, well, what are you paying your 6 points for? Like, it's because I want to go there. I want to put my tax building there, or I want to, I want to buy that one builder that's sitting on the strip, right? But the thing that you really need to be considering is the importance of having an extra turn, and this is why Donte's question makes me think, because if you do the math on the game, I think a turn is worth somewhere between 2 and 4 points. If you divide up the number of turns you have by the number of points you score.
Right.
So you would say, well, a turn is worth 3.2 points. It depends on the game. It's going to be different each time, but it's somewhere in there. But you know what is also true is your 26th turn versus your 27th turn. The 27th turn is almost certainly not going to be 2 or 3 points. It's going to be 5 or 6 or 7 points. Sometimes it's going to be 10, 15. It depends on what you might do. You might have that, that 27th turn is the one where you delivered to San Francisco and you had the objective card. That's a 14-point turn. Your 27th turn might be the one where you did ring the bell, and you ended up, getting the 9 points Donte's talking about for $3, and then you drop your train back and get, 7 more points somewhere. That when you bid to have the possibility, when I bid to go first versus going fourth, if I go fourth, I know that I will not have any more turns than my opponents. They may have more than me, but I know I won't have more than them.
Right.
If I bid to go first, I may or may not have more turns than my opponents. But it's not just that. It's not just that I might have one more turn than them, and a turn's worth 2.4 points a turn or whatever. No, it's because I'm going to get my 27th turn, and they're going to have only their 26th. And the 27th turn is the difference between the 26th turn and the 27th turn is much bigger than the difference between the third turn and the fourth turn, let's say. Those final turns of the game, you are almost always piling on the points. So to get one more turn, it's not just about getting one more turn. It's about getting one more turn at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. Something to consider. It's something I've been thinking about. Always bid to go first. Maybe not 6, right? Yeah. But, it's worth something.
So Dan has his game, the yellow player has his game really well set up. He has his buildings right in the right places. If you noticed, he had to pay some taxes, but he got from the very start position all the way over to the TP spot just in that one move. He was able, I'm not sure if he removed a hazard or not, probably not, but he was able to drive his search all the way down to the maximum. And still do stuff, and so he can probably get around the board in two rounds, which is really awesome if he so desires.
A little note, just for what it's worth, Dan has been buying cows in this game. I think he ended up buying 3 cows.
Yeah,
I think he's bought 2 at this point. He ends up buying 3 over the course of the game, and there is a moment at the very end of the game, just to throw a spoiler ahead, where he just got unlucky on his draw and ended up, missing a chance to get a bunch of points at the end. He would have got, a better delivery or something. It's one of the things that you notice on the tape if you watch closely, and it's one of the things that he mentioned when we did a little private post-game analysis, the 4 players and some of the onlookers and stuff. Right after the game, we all chatted for a while, which was cool. And Dan was pointing out how close he came to having a really sweet delivery there at the end.
Right.
So sometimes you just don't draw him, but it's worth noting that he is doing the thing where when you do the 10A building, you want to buy a couple cows to really spring it. That being said, you all still aren't delivering. Look at the top of that board.
Right.
Oh, my God.
So luck in this game is something I want to talk about with you guys.
Sure.
But I want to talk about Dan's game real quick. So Dan got second, lost by 9 points. I think Dan's playing a good game. He's doing Builder the right way. He's putting the builder spot. He's putting his buildings in all the places I think where you should put them.
And he lost by 9. 5 of them were the bid, by the way.
Yeah, 5 of them were the bid. So
not that
with no bid, he lost by 4 points.
Yeah. Well, you can't say that. You know what I mean. Yeah.
But I think Dan's doing well, and just from watching this game the first time, I think how Dan lost his game is because of Eugene. Eugene went before him in his actions. He didn't go before him in turn order, but Eugene went before. He went faster, and Eugene got the good spots before Dan did. There was a time where, if you guys remember, where Dan bought 1 builder when he couldn't, but he wanted to buy 2 builders, and Eugene was just getting better plays before him in this game.
Certainly, without Eugene doing the things that had to be done to stop him, Dan probably wins the game. So he got second. He got second for a reason.
Yep.
Yeah, he played well. I was really impressed. He knocked me out. So very bitter.
Now, luck in this game. There's not that much luck in this game. Like in Stone Age, it's a dice rolling game. There's a lot of luck. But in this game, the luck comes in drawing your cows.
Yeah, I agree.
So Eugene, I saw in this game, there were times where you're delivering cows, like early in the game where luck matters the most. You had 3 black cows and 1 white cow. That's terrible luck.
Right.
So what do you guys think is...
Sometimes you have those games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes the draw of when you deliver to Kansas City, I mean, it could be as crappy as $1 or $2, and sometimes you're lucky and it's $7. And I understand that sometimes that swings the game. I mean, getting that extra early money can be really awesome. I'm not sure how much you can do about it. I mean, you can try to mitigate it, but you really don't want to give up speed just to try to mitigate a couple of dollars.
I will tell the story I always tell. Just again, you these guys have heard all my stories, but maybe people who are listening haven't. I always tell the story when people talk about luck in the game. We were in the it was the PresCon final. It was the one that Rodney got second. I got third. It was the one Anthony won by like 20.
Mm-hmm.
And I was whining after the game to Eugene about a couple key moments in the game where I just didn't have the right cows in my hand when I delivered. Yeah. And you had watched the whole game. You had watched that whole game. And you said, Scott, I watched you play the whole game. You never stopped on the space to cycle your hand. You never did, And so what did you expect? Yeah. So, I mean, if you really did the things that you were supposed to do to mitigate the luck and you still got unlucky, fair to complain. But don't complain if you didn't at least do those things, right? I mean, this is a hand management game, and so there are little subtle deck skills
right.
That you need to be sharp at to have a mastery of the game. It's kind of neat, by the way. I've been hammering Randy through pretty much the whole commentary. Randy is a world-class Magic player, and it's always neat to watch him play a game like this because he's a player who really understands, moving through your deck and that made me think of that when he was talking after the game about how he really boned that one moment having to do with whether to get the cow into your shuffle and stuff. And those are the kind of things you notice if you're a card player. If you're a player, I'm not a Magic player, but I played Netrunner, for instance, and you get into, even if you're a Dominion player, by the way, something like that, where you really get a good feel for how important it is to manage the flow of the deck if you're going to go through it several times over the course of the game. Seeding the cards into it and when you're going to draw things and all that stuff. Little things that you've got to be able to be a master of if you want to be really good. There are times in the game, for instance, where you need to not. It sounds crazy. If you need to not, for instance, play a green card for 2, because what's available in your draw pile and that you need it for the next loop. You certainly don't want to draw it now, for instance. So it can be a smart play to not play a card for $2 because then you'll accidentally draw the 4 cow that you need for the next loop. This loop sucks, but next loop is when I hit the 12, right? So I can't draw that 4 now. I need that next time around, and I know it's sitting right there. I don't want to draw it. I don't need $2. So let it go. Don't play a card. Little things like that you need to be able to do.
So we're starting to wind down the game. We know that everybody has maybe 1 or 2 more loops around the board. And I'm looking at my train and I think, okay, I can definitely make it as long as people don't outrun me around the board and deliver before I can get 2 more loops around. Because I'm delivering right now. You can see that there's 8 spaces left on the worker board. And that means everybody can if everybody goes and gets 1 delivery right after me, then I'll have 1 more play at the very, very end. And so I'm trying to time things out, at least so I can make it down to the end of the line. I can certainly do it if I get to the very last building in the upper left. That will give me certainly enough train movement, and I have to decide how my very last loop around the board is going to end up. So I just want to throw that out.
A couple of things I'm noticing. Continuing on the theme I was just on, harping on the theme I was just on. Dan just bought that 4 cow, and he bought it in a position where you can tell he's about to hit his shuffle.
Yeah.
And he's about to hit his shuffle. I think, does he manage to shuffle before he goes in? If he does, that's perfect timing. And then maybe he can draw the 4 cow. Maybe that's what he was telling me in the story later. I can't remember. Other thing I noticed at this point in the game, we haven't talked about Brandon's game too much. And, you look at his board down in the bottom left, and the game's nearly over. He's still sitting on 3 cowboys. That's tough. He didn't get hand size off. He hasn't got any of his black discs off. And you think go back in time and think, well, what could he have done differently? And the one thing that comes to mind right away is dropping that cowboy for that station master early, right?
Yeah.
Even though I'm sure that was nice to have, and as I said when he took it, it's one of my favorites. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a +1.
Yeah, and it's if you can score it. If you work it, you can score it, and it can be as many points as a good delivery, actually. But the pace he gave up at that point in the game, I think, hurt him the whole game. I don't think he never got out of the hole.
Yeah.
He should be sitting on, I mean, if you're going to do cows, right? So he should be sitting on 5 or 6 cows now and just buying the crap out of him every time he hits the black tile. So, yeah.
Right. If you end up in we have the final score in front of us. So Brandon ended up with 25 points in cows, and if you're doing a heavy cow strategy, that is just not enough points.
54 wasn't enough.
54 was not enough cow points.
Yeah. But jokes aside, I think you probably want a number that starts with 4, and then you think about maybe that's the winning that might have a chance of winning if you had 40 something, maybe 40 something and a good delivery row up top. I am not seeing red discs up top.
Right.
He's dropped in the 6. Is there a red hiding? I think there's red hiding under that blue thing on the 8 spot. I'm pretty
Santa
sure.
Fe.
I'm pretty sure. I know it doesn't look like it, but I think there is.
He probably has had not very good luck on his draws as he's delivering.
Yeah.
But again, you have to figure out some way of mitigating that so that eventually you get around and making a... So
you sit down at the game. We go back to the very beginning of the game and the decisions that you make. What strategy am I going to pursue in this game? And you say to yourself, well, maybe I'm going to go cowboy this game. For the love of God, 2A is not in the game, the one that lets you buy your own cow market.
Right.
And 4B is not in the game. Neither the cow buildings, which are very easy to get and some people think are broken. They're so good, the one that lets you draw your hand for how many cowboys you have, and the one that lets you have a second opportunity to buy cows. Neither of those are in the game. This game is screaming not to play cowboys, and 2 guys did it. And Randy after the game was trying to say, well, I staked my claim in cowboys. I kind of put a line in the sand and said, and then Brandon didn't read. What was Randy saying? He was saying that Brandon didn't pick up on the cue that you're supposed to do something.
The Cowboys were his.
The Cowboys are mine. The Cowboys are mine. And so Brandon should have gone a different way. I don't know what to say about that, but certainly the results speak for themselves. The 2 guys that did cows in a non-cow game came in 3rd and 4th.
Well, the thing about doing cows in a non-cow game, if you're the only person doing one strategy, it can work.
Sure.
If you're the only person doing cows, it can work.
That's what either Randy or Brandon would probably say.
That's probably what Randy was saying. Yeah. He was probably thinking, you know what? It might work if I'm the only person doing it. But so when you're looking at Brandon's game and you're saying, what did he do wrong? I think the problem with somebody's game in this game is obvious. You look at Brandon's stuff. He's just got nothing going on. You look at his board. He's got one.
The board state is awful.
If you're the red player and you're looking at this, oh my God, look at all those black hands.
Doesn't it look like Anthony's?
Aren't yours?
Doesn't it look like Anthony's game from last year?
Yeah.
Where Anthony had to start.
It's just nothing going on.
Anthony had to start each trip through the rondel with nothing to do, and you got to have a productive tile in there somewhere. He threw the taxer in there, and that's not bad play. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's paid off $18 over the course of the game, right? It's paid off every time.
Yep.
Well, I guess Randy's going south. To be fair, Randy is Randy going south or not?
Randy always goes south.
He must be.
He always
he's giving you 3 then. Oh man, we all hate you, Eugene. We all hate you when you put that building down there. That was a real dick move, man.
Yeah, Randy probably really hates you for that.
Oh my
sure
God,
he does.
That was so powerful when you did that. Go back.
He writes me hate letters every day.
But that's with this game. I'm telling you, you just gotta look at the board. Eugene is set up to do well. Green is giving him $3 a round. Red giving him $2 a round. Eugene has got the most hazards. I mean, the most taxing buildings. It's just working out for him. He's just he set him up in a place to do well.
Board state.
Yes.
Spaces to stop on the rondel. Proper spacing. Think about where your buildings go. Efficient action spaced properly.
So Brandon has just delivered, so he's got his heads out. So you can do the count now. So that means that after Brandon, so Randy goes. Randy has just entered the board. Is that correct? Is he down at the very first spot? trying to find where his cowboy is.
For Randy? Randy's in the middle on the TP spot. It's black,
yeah.
so it's hard to see.
Black cat's hard to see. Yeah.
So he will go, when he delivers, he will put one worker on the $5 row, second to bottom row, and then another one down. And then it'll be between Dan and I who delivers last and triggers the end of the game. Okay, so for me, I have to make sure from where I am on the board, I know I can ring the bell. The question is, what else am I going to do on my last loop? One of the things I will make sure is that I ring the bell at the very end of the game, whether it's my last turn or my second to last play of the game. And then am I going to look at anything else? And I'm looking at my objective card. I certainly have station houses for my starting objective card. I think I need a green TP in there somewheres.
I was going to wait till this happens. You're going to tap that green TP in a minute. You keep viewers. Spoiler alert. He starts It's a tell, right? He starts tapping the green TP with his finger, and as I watched the video the other day, I was like, dude, he just realized that's a $6 TP. I mean, a 6 point TP. That's a 6 point
because
TP.
it completes my starting objective card and allows me to have a pair of TPs which help score with the station master. And I'm trying to figure out whether I need to get that, whether I need to get a hazard instead. What am I going to do with my money in addition to ringing the bell? And so that's what I'm thinking about as I'm going through my last loop.
You're probably also thinking, I see a TP, I see a green TP up there in the futures market. I mean, I'm going to buy the green TP if I have to. I'm going to spend $1 for one if I have to, because it's 6 points.
Correct.
And 6 points for $1 is a pretty good deal.
Good deal.
But wouldn't it be cool if somebody would put
drop one in?
Wouldn't it be cool if somebody would put the green TP out for me? I better not tap the green TP with my finger and let everybody know that that's what I need. Because
it's 12:30 at night. You think I can think straight? No way. And Dan is just doing his stuff. His game is really good. If you look in the upper right, the amount of money he has is absolutely insane.
His board state and spacing is awesome. His tax buildings are set up well. He got unlucky in the desert taxer, for what it's worth.
Correct.
There was a moment in the game, it took forever for this to happen. There was a moment in the game finally where like 3 yellow hazards came out, boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
And then that was exactly the moment in the game where people at this table decided to start buying hazards.
Yes.
And they bought them all up right away. So that the yellow taxer in the desert, actually, I don't know that he ever got anything from it for taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's just unlucky on that. There is luck in the game. One of the ways there's luck is the order the tiles come out. By the way, the blue hazards came out really late for the longest. For like 3/4 of the game, we only saw 2 of them.
Yes.
And I think Randy had bought one or somebody had bought one early. So there was just one sitting there forever.
Yes.
And I'm pretty certain that you're looking at the 3rd one of the game in the futures market now. And then I think the last 3 undiscovered tiles in the pile, I think are all blue hazards. Yeah. This is the way it worked out. Yeah, every game's different.
And so if you notice, Dan's setup where his cowboy is on the TP spot, and then if you notice that the next 2 spots to move is my $1 tax, which was there forever because no one removed the rock slides, which made me happy. But Dan got his $3 tax building down.
You're touching the TP. Look.
I am.
There it is. There it is.
Stop touching the TP.
You just figured it out.
Yes.
Now Randy should be looking at you and going, but you'll see what he does in a minute.
But Dan is really set up. He's getting money flow much better than any of the rest of us.
Yeah.
It's absolutely awesome. And I'm looking over there, I'm thinking, well, what the heck is going to do with all that money? And he figured something out, and it was just absolutely wonderful.
Okay, so to be a total ass and continue to criticize all the guys who made it to the final except me, and I'll get around to you too, my friend.
Sure.
But if you walk through like the key moments in the game where I think that people missed a chance. With Brandon's game, the red player, as I said, I think even though it seemed okay at the time, I think giving up the head cost him too much pace in collecting cowboys. I think that was the mistake for him. For Dan, the mistake was a subtle thing. It was not putting out builders when he just needed to buy one. He wasn't going to keep you from getting the one you needed, but he needed to put out every builder he could see. He just needed one, and he needed to make sure that he got that. That was the. I think if he gets that 4th builder earlier in the game, he gives you a real run for it.
Yeah, he actually probably might
He
win.
might have won, maybe.
Yes.
I'm not sure, but he might have. Yeah. And then just to continue my circle of criticism to make the loop here, I think Randy's mistake, I really think, was that first building play. I just don't think that was the right. So
he actually improved it. You notice that he improved it. And I think he always wanted to improve it. So I'm not sure if it was necessarily the most horrible place to go. If he's only going
You're so vulnerable when you put things down there. You do make it possible for somebody to do exactly what you did to him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if people would normally do that.
Well, in our group we do. So
yeah,
that's a difference in the meta that he plays in.
Right.
In our group, we don't let anybody do that. The only way you get away with placing 2 in the swamp these days is if you manage to do it on the same trip through, where you do the special build by building the 4th or 6th builder
and get to your regular build action,
and then do the regular build action, and then your opponents look up and say, "Oh my God, how did he build 2 guys right next to each other in the swamp? Bam, bam." Otherwise, you put a building down there. By the way, Randy's about to give you the damn green TP. What should I put out? Should I give Eugene a $6 TP for and some money to go with it? A 6-point TP. I think let's do it. I am a dick. I'm a world class ass.
But in Randy's defense, he knows that he's not going to be getting he's not getting another builder, so he has to figure out, and I'm pretty sure, I haven't talked to him about it, you could probably ask him, that his whole intent the whole time was to put that 1 building down and improve it to the 2 building, which is where he's at.
Yes.
Okay.
But he probably also wanted to get the
I don't think he ever thought that somebody would bomb him the way I did.
He wanted to get 3B in the other spot, right?
Yeah,
3B,
probably,
which is sweet.
Probably.
But if he'd played with us in our little game group, he would have known that we're not going to allow that.
Yeah,
we're not going to let him do that.
But even if not, I had to spend a lot to get that building there. I mean, I gave up a lot of things.
It was a purely defensive move.
Purely defensive.
Yeah.
And normally you don't do that. I mean, I'm not sure if I can ever remember another time that when we play the game that happens.
Right, don't put out the green TP. Not the green one. Eugene needs that. No, you pointed at it too. You're like, oh, put the green TP out. That's not. No. Damn it. And you're right next to it too. It's your next play. You're like, and I know you got to be sitting there going.
Frank,
I was buying it anyway.
Yeah.
I was like, why not?
Yeah.
I'll take $4 too.
I mean, that's a point, right?
I know.
I forgot whether the money made a difference or not. I mean, whether I get +4 or -1.
I tease because I love Randy's gonna kick my ass next time he sees me. It's good. I'm gonna have to run. Yeah.
All right. The one thing I want to say about Randy. So we've been criticizing Randy on this building placement the entire game.
I'm sorry.
And I think one thing Randy's gonna say is, Dad, you pointed out earlier in this game. So we all think, and I think he should have put his building in right next to the desert because there was 2 hazards there. It was the right play. But what Randy's gonna say is, right when those hazards went out in the desert, they bought him off right away, just like that. And look at Dan's yellow building, like you said earlier. It hasn't made him any money. So Randy's defense is going to be, guys, like I predicted.
No, you can't predict how the hazards are going to come
Randy's
out.
going to look at it and say, Dan's spot is where everyone thinks I should put my thing. But what's Dan's spot getting him? It's not getting him that much. But then we would say rebuttal that.
It's getting him a perfect spring into buying ahead.
Exactly.
It's the board position he wants. He takes it took him too long to set up. It took him just a little bit too long to set up. But right now he's got the board exactly how he wants it.
So Randy's going to try to defend that play because we know him.
It's still not awful.
It's not awful, but where Randy put it is an okay spot.
He's giving you $3 when he goes through it.
No, but how many times has that really ever happened? Even if I drop a building down. I mean, in most games, that would be a suboptimal play to improve the 1 to a 5. And so Randy would get what he wants out of it. He gets the $2 plus the certificate bump. Maybe he pays $1 tax to me if I don't improve it. And then he gets to bounce 2 spots. Okay, and he was going to end up on that dead spot anyway. Maybe it's still worth something.
Dan's building in the yellow, even though it's not making him money, it's still good. Why is it still good? Because it bumps him off into the head, and buying heads is great. So Randy's spot, it's nice. the point to go the southern is that you get to throw away a gray to get a cert bump in $2, which is nice.
Which is great.
It's nice. Yeah. But Eugene really hosed him with that $3 he pays. Because when Randy gives Eugene $3, that's a $6 swing between the two of them. That's big.
By the way, nice placement by Dan.
It's fantastic.
There. He just gave himself a bunch more points. He's gonna use the tile. First of all, the tile he put down is worth what, about?
It's worth 8 points for $12.
And so he's got all the builders now. He's gonna go ahead and use it the very next turn and buy a bunch more points. Awesome. Well done.
He had all this money and he figured out a way of getting points out of it. It was absolutely awesome. So I went there. I get my TP, satisfy that. So now that I'm looking at it, let's see. So Dan is going to deliver in front of me, and then I'll be able to deliver unless one of the other guys finishes first. And by the way, I looked at my hand, and I had enough to deliver for 12, I think, because I was able to push my certs down to the bottom. And so I know that I can ring the bell. And I'm hoping to both ring the bell and deliver. One movement will move me to.
Do you have a good? I mean, you haven't bought cows, right?
So, no, but I have the +6.
That's right.
Okay,
sure.
plus a permanent certificate, so I'm at +7.
Yeah.
For plus whatever my hand happens to actually
12
be.
Shouldn't be a problem, at least,
I mean, if you're not cycling your cards very much, which I was not, because I was spending all my time moving my train. But there was enough places to cycle my hand enough. And so I know that my game is going to finish up and it'll be okay. Hopefully I can get 2 actions done. And I'm just worried that the yellow will play before me and red will play before me. And the hope is that yellow doesn't go and then, red doesn't deliver and yellow doesn't deliver right away. So I only get 1 action.
Yeah. We're about to see Randy take another dead action coming off the spring of this because he doesn't have a pair in his hand. And you would not expect at this point in the game, late in the game, the cow guy to have a pair of matching cards in his hand,
right?
Because he's bought so many other cows. So it's just unlikely. So he's going to end up taking a buck or 1 draw or whatever it is.
And you can't take a dead action this late in the game.
No.
Like you said, this is your 27th, 26th turn. This is where you got to make those
if I take
money into
one,
points.
If I take 1 dead action over the course of this game, I feel like I've really screwed up. I didn't plan. Something went wrong. It happens. It does happen. But I'm kicking myself. I feel like couldn't I have set this up better? What could I have done? Or my opponents just blocked me so well. By the way, all the ones are flowing like the table is tilted and they're being shaken down. We have nickels and pennies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
all the dollars, single dollars are on the right side.
If you watch this game in super fast motion, you'll just see a cycle of copper going from left to right, and then every once in a while they'll realize it and they'll pick them all up and dump them back over on the left side, and that's just the green and red player handing tax money over to the yellow and blue player.
And then here comes.
Look at all. There's all the ones.
They're all of them.
Got a wall.
And he gets to build another building right away. That was just fantastic. Yes.
It put him within striking distance of you.
Yeah.
Were you worried at all? You knew you were winning. I'm sure you knew you were winning.
I was pretty sure
I was
worried,
winning.
Though? Well, I thought, man, he got a whole lot of points.
Yeah.
I can only do what I can do. That's just the building he threw down is just a building just to get points. He used all his money and got a ton of points.
He went from being 20 down on you to high single digits in 2 turns.
Right.
Yeah, it was really. Yeah.
And plus, we're paying him tons of money.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
Dan got 42 points in buildings. He got 17.
That's a good number.
He got 17 in hazards, which is crazy.
Yeah.
10 cows.
He got 10 cows.
Yeah.
13 objectives, and he's had all this money. I would definitely be scared of Dan if I'm Eugene.
Right.
My hat is off.
So I get to ring the bell, dump a disc, and then drop back somewhere behind me.
And this is you retaking the lead, by the way. He was
Dan was doing good.
He was actually ahead of you in points for just a moment there, probably. If you had a scoreboard on the top of the screen,
Right.
Ringing the bell is just so good.
So I was able to get all the discs that I assumed I was going to get off. And it was okay because I know I can deliver the last round for 6 points, I think it is.
we assume
Collect
yellow's
10,
going in
12.
at this point, right? He's got nothing else to do.
Right.
So that means when you go in, you're going to trigger it. That's
Yep.
that's the calculation you're making right now.
Yes.
You're not like thinking there's no way I get another turn here, right?
Correct.
I guess
Because
I don't even know if you want one, but I mean, what would you, if you're thinking about it at this point, if you looked ahead, is there anything worth doing?
What would have happened is that if I didn't have a good delivery, I would have stopped and built a building before that. And then my last action would be to ring the bell.
Yeah.
But since I knew that I had a decent delivery, I just went forward for that.
Yeah. I think like we said on the video last year, generally the player who rings the bell, at that point of the game, you're ready for things to wrap up now. Nothing more to do here. Let's go.
You pretty much time it out so that that's about the last thing that happens in the game.
Red at this point is hoping to have a strong hand, get a few points here at the end on the delivery. I mean, that's what that's what his game ought to be, and probably he'll probably get a. Oh, this was the time where do you remember this? No. Brandon had a situation. He got hosed here.
Where he didn't have a draw.
No, he had an objective card in his hand. Remember?
Oh,
do you remember that? And he was trying to figure out how to get it out of his hand.
Right.
And there's no good way, is there?
There wasn't.
And so he was going to be looking at delivering. He didn't take hand size. He's holding it right now. Actually, it's in the bottom left. So
San Francisco.
The rule is going to be such that he's going to have to go in there with 3 cards. Because there's no way
that goes into the. So wait a second. He's the red player. Are we talking about Randy or are we talking about Brandon? Brandon is taking his turn, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he has that card in his hand.
Yeah.
He's trying to figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah, I think he drew it at the end of the turn, right? And he was trying to figure out how to get it.
Well, he's there. He didn't deliver yet, right?
Not yet, no.
So it's in his hand.
Right.
I think he needed to get it out of his hand first. All right, we're discussing how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right, because he's got it in his hand.
But no,
if it stays in his hand, then it doesn't. He doesn't get to.
Wasn't the issue that when he drew back up, he drew it and he was asking?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's a dead card.
Yeah. He just got hosed, just unlucky.
Yeah. Yes.
But he ended up. I think he got away with it. We'll see in a minute. I think he got away with it. He had the right number.
He had a good enough number.
Got to 12. Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
That's another thing with the cow strategy that makes it less good. With the cow strategy, you gotta get lucky with the cows.
I'm peering ahead. I remember now. He had to use a cert. That's what ended up happening. And the cert was 3 points. He had to give up 3 points. He makes the 12, but he had to give up 3 points.
Okay, you're right.
Where are all the ones? Randy's wondering.
Oh, look over to your left. Yeah. On Dan's pile.
Pile of nickels.
Good golly. And I think at this moment, so Randy takes his turn. He buys cow, which is what he's supposed to be doing. Dan gets to move. He was talking out loud to me. He said, I'm going to deliver and hope that you don't have a good delivery.
So you don't want to end this game with money. Money is 5 for a point, which is a terrible deal. Is Dan about to end this game with a shit ton of money?
He did everything he could, right? He doesn't need to buy any more heads. There's nothing left to be done.
Yeah.
The reason he has all that money is like we've been saying. I think people keep paying him.
Tax.
I mean, he's getting that $3.
That's $9 he's getting from his opponents every time they go through there.
Right.
Having too much money is a good problem to have.
Yeah.
I mean, he used a whole bunch of it, and he got 12 points the last 2 actions.
I mean, Donte, you're right. Like all board games, if you at the end of the game you have a bunch of money left, you probably say to yourself, "I could have spent it on something." But in my experience, usually if you have a lot of money left at the end of the game, probably things went right for you, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
There's a reason,
Yeah, I think Dan played a good game. He did everything right.
Well, he didn't do everything right. He did not figure out
not everything.
No, he did one thing wrong, and he didn't figure out how to get that 4th builder in time.
That was a major thing.
I think we have a neck to neck race if he does that one loop sooner. That's the difference in the game, to my mind. By the way, he beat me in the semi. When he beat me in the semi, he played a pretty similar game. It was a pretty straight up builder. He didn't do a bunch of other stuff. He got a bunch of buildings out. In my game, unfortunately, he did get to the fourth builder.
Yeah.
I blame myself. I mean, Eugene, you kept him from it in a lot of ways in this one, and I did not, and that's how he got me. I ended up losing to him by 4 in a game where I felt like I played about as good a game of Great Western as I could have. Mm-hmm. It's just that I didn't do what I needed to do somehow early, and he got in front of me.
So he's delivering. I think he had no, it wasn't a great hand.
Yeah, he didn't draw that 4 cow that he had gotten.
Right.
And that's
right. He said if he would have,
he'd have probably got to the
is it the 14 or the 10?
Is he missing the 10 maybe?
I think he might be missing the 10.
No, it couldn't be because he's got all the certs, right? He had to have gotten.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He has all the certs. So he's missed the 14.
He's missing the 14, which is an 8-point play.
Is it 8?
Because he
lost
didn't get his.
He lost you by 9.
He didn't get his 3-point discount.
Yeah,
that's right. He lost the 8 and the 3. No, but the 8 is a white disc anyway, so it wasn't going to get his 3-pointer off.
That's true. Yeah,
but that was 8 points.
Yeah. Now you don't get to draw the 4 just because you want to. So.
Right.
But he had a shot at it.
Yep.
He would have been lucky to draw it. To be fair,
yes.
And he was not lucky. Getting down to the very end, and who's
right, and then it's my turn.
It's you, so you
and I already know where I'm at.
You trigger,
yes, because I know I have a decent delivery, and then I know I'm triggering the end, and I just want to make sure that I don't make any mistakes or give people points.
Thank you for saying that, because what's going to happen here at the very end is you get this happens all the time. I earlier in this commentary I criticized. Sort of less experienced players who will say, "Oh, it doesn't matter," and just put stuff out when it really, really matters a lot. Even at the very end, I've even seen really good players will sometimes say, "Get lazy," right here at the end, and say, "It doesn't matter." What you're about to see is, I think the next 2 deliveries. Dan's still got another turn.
He has another turn,
and the next 2 guys both put out. For no reason at all, a TP or 2 TP. They both put out a TP. I think we'll see it in a second. I'm pretty sure,
right?
Or at least one of them does. And Dan ends up getting to it. And the game didn't come down to 1 point, but if the game came down to 1 point, there it was.
Right.
So.
Right. I put out the builders because Dan's the only guy that can get to the worker space, and he's already filled up his workers, so they do him no good.
Yeah. Thank you, Rodney, for moving the camera. Pretty sure. Yeah. I mean, little things like that. Stay focused right to the end. Even if you think you've lost the game or whatever, but there might be other people who are still hoping that you don't put out a 4-point, $4 builder for somebody to get their last spot or something. So like what Eugene was saying just now, he can put builders out safely because no one can score them. Right. Dan's the only person who can reach the spot, but it's keep focused. There's all those blue hazards. I knew they were in there somewhere.
Yeah. So I triggered the end until everybody else gets their last play. Brandon was in a bind because he had an objective card in his hand.
We'll go ahead and wait for the last couple of plays before we start doing some in-game wrap-up stuff. Don't put out the TP. Don't put out the TP. Don't put out the TP. There's no reason not to put the hazard out, right?
Right.
Because the hazard doesn't have any more points on it than any of the other ones do.
Correct.
So there's no
right.
Because you wouldn't want to put out like a
4-point hazard that somebody can buy off.
For sure. Yeah. Maybe that's what he's thinking of right now. But in this case. There it is. Sorry, I'm a dick.
You are a dick.
I'm a dick.
A dick did not make this final.
No, yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
There we go. Those just
and
go
those
away.
are irrelevant.
Yeah.
His cow value.
It was
Sorry,
three cards, and so he has to spend the cert, and it cost him 3 points.
Yeah, because he had a permanent cert to get to 12. Yeah.
If you're not following too closely, the reason he loses 3 points is because he's got that thing at the end of the game. If you got for every 2 certs, so he has the one that's attached to it as part of the tile itself. He needed just one more. He had to spend it just now, but it was still the right trade, of course, because that was a 6-point play, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh well, that's just unlucky.
Yeah.
Dan's got the last play. Don't put that TP out though when you get the chance.
Randy delivers.
That's a nice hand.
That's a good hand.
There we go.
14.
Man, he never took off the disc for the hand drawing thing.
No.
Yeah, who needs to draw?
Right. If you're playing cows.
There it goes. Never too late. He's probably making a joke about it right now. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was frustrating. He moved his train a tiny bit. Nah, not.
He moved it some.
Yeah, he was just thinking of something else that never happened. Obviously.
Yeah.
Not the damn it. Not the TP. Am I missing something? That's not like a 4-point TP, is it? I mean, a 4-point hazard.
I don't think so.
It's a 3, I think. That's like all the others.
What else is on the board?
Even
I
if
can't
it
really
was,
tell.
there's some 4-point TPs in the canyons up there.
Are there 4s already? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I thought they were all 3s and 2s, but whatever. Somebody needs
I don't know.
Somebody needs to get a better camera. Something like that.
Yeah.
I can't see it. Speaking of those hazards, that yellow and blue building have been paying out money the entire game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what you were bidding to go to.
Yep.
And that's why, I mean, you guys said 6 is maybe too much. I bid 9 points for first. I'm telling you.
No, I'd have bid 2 for second. I'll tell you that.
I'm telling you.
I'd have bid 2 for second.
That's true.
Oh, yeah, bid
That's
2 for
definitely
second.
true.
So the bids were 6100.
Yeah.
If anybody remembers it, with the second being the gentleman to my left gets for a steal.
Yeah.
Those first taxing buildings are so fruitful. They give you so much money.
Damn, you did a good job with that train, Eugene. Look at that. Blue row down. That's the way it's supposed to look.
Yeah.
Nicely done. He doesn't have anything to do except go get that. And it's a point.
Yeah.
Okay, why not?
It's just a point.
Yeah.
He actually paid $4 to get it. So he didn't really even net that much. Paid $3 in taxes.
Ah, good point. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if he should have just stopped it, then bought a hazard. The lower left. Pay $4 and get $7.
He bought the hazard off his own tile.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think he sniped 3 points that way.
Okay.
And he may or may not have needed it. Did he need the 5th one? No, it doesn't look like he needed the 5th one.
I think so.
So there's the objective card sitting there that I was complaining about. Oh, you should grab that thing.
Yeah.
There's an extra 3 points. Why not?
Yeah.
That would have given him something to do in his last turn too. Instead of going through all that loop there, he could have just grabbed an objective card and actually, now to come to think of it, could he have done that instead? I don't know. It depends on what's hiding under that other one.
Right.
No. There's the one sitting in the top right. He's already. That's 2 houses, 2 greens.
Right. So I think he has other objectives, right? He completed several objectives.
Maybe.
He completed 13 points in objectives.
So
he had a whole set of them.
No, I think we're looking at the 13 right now, though.
Okay.
It's the 5-1, the 5-1 sitting in his deck, the other 5-1 sitting on top, and then his starter.
Oh, okay.
And I think his starter, I could be wrong about this, but I think his starter was the one that I liked, which is the 2 buildings and a hazard one, I think. Mm-hmm. Which is doing right up his alley. He built at least 5 buildings too, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. He did 6, yeah.
I do think that is an underrated part of the game, is completing objectives. Like I said, investigating parts of the game. That's certainly one way of scoring points, which I think very, very few people think about.
Our group more than most. I think we usually in our game group we usually get 2 or 3.
Yeah.
The thing that's probably is a little discouraging about it, I'll just say, is you feel like when you stop on that tile, especially if you don't have engineers,
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
you feel like that's a slow action. But you got to remember that the card you're picking up is going to have a free action on it.
It's a double effect.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're gonna get if you feel like it's a dead action, some compensation is going to be you're going to get free action later. It works out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're counting the score now, and I'll probably put a graphic on the final video where we show the final score sheet, so we can kind of lean back on our chairs a little bit and I don't know. Let's start by asking Eugene. I would ask Donte, except he only played 1 game in the damn tournament.
And got the best score.
Shit. Let's ask Eugene. Give me the big overview of the tournament. How'd you feel like the
tournament was an excellent tournament. I think I know Scott has been the game master of Great Western for most of these tournaments, and I think he does a very good job.
Thank you.
And I think it is run extremely competently, and it's run very straightforward. And so, if you like the game, we certainly invite you or hope that you come to one of these tournament sites and come play it.
Please
do.
Do.
To play
If
good
you're-
competition.
If you're watching this video and you're still with us, and you're anywhere near being able to make one of these things, you're the kind of we'd love to see you there. Come show us how it's done, please. I really.
You can play probably 3 times, maybe more during within the space of a few days.
Yep.
3 or 4 really good games.
You're going to get really good games. The concentration of good players in this is really strong. We do get the whole gamut of beginners through experienced players, but you're almost certainly going to get a chance to get at least 2 or 3 games in with some great players.
And you will see things that you probably haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So if your gaming group just does cows all the time, you'll start to see, hey, people are doing things like building or moving their engineer, and see what the possibilities are. I think that's a great thing about games.
This is a great game to play at WBC. 2019 was the second year at Great Western Trail was shown. And each time, a whole bunch of players did it. The first year is 106. Second year is 86 players.
We were 89 this year.
89.
Yeah.
So it's a great tournament. And like you guys said, you go to these heats and you learn. I mean, it's a fun game. You learn. It's a good tournament to play at WBC.
Hopefully you learned a little bit in this video too. If you can get past all my snarky ass remarks, I was playing this. I was playing a heat of Great Western at it was PresCon, I think. Yeah, it was PresCon, and I sat down, and a guy on my left was somebody I didn't know, and he immediately went right to the business of winning the game and concurrently wrecking my game, and we're halfway through it, and I finally kind of looked over at him a little bit and said, "You're really doing well." And he said, "Yeah, I watched the video." I'm not kidding. That was pretty cool. So he'd seen our work last year, and he was executing some of the stuff that we talked about. He was doing the Southern strategy. He was doing, real good job with the builders, things like that. I don't know that have we had anything to the strategic discourse this year? I think maybe less so, to be honest. And here we are 3 hours in almost, closing in on that. And I still get back to my own personal view, which is that the meta hasn't shifted a whole lot. Donte, we were saying that worries you, and I agree a little bit. That does not change the fact, though, that each game is, can be really, really interesting. And here's the thing about the non-evolving meta. What we've been doing in our game group, and this we played the game earlier today, but this happens all the time we play now. You gang up on the builder. That's what you got to do. You got to be really careful about putting builders out early in the game. If you're not doing it yourself, right? So you're going to combat it somehow.
Right.
You need to be real sharp about thinking about when to put the builders out. I mean, we played earlier today with Anthony. We really hosed him hard. All of us sniped at least one builder. When we had to put one out, we would figure out a way to put it in the $9 row or whatever, and we just did everything we could to slow them down. You never let somebody get, if at all possible, you don't let somebody get 2 tiles next to each other if certain combos are in the game. and there's a lot of them. There's 2 or 3 where if you get 2 tiles together, they kind of work well together. You do the thing that Eugene did in this game. If somebody drops their marker down in the swamp, you can test them. It's tough, but you made it work, and you made it work well in this game. I would say this. I feel like if I'm going to be the guy who contests you in the swamp, I want to put something down there that I'm going to use too. And we didn't see that in this game, to be fair. You got away with it, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, the secondary part of what I did was that I made sure that I was collecting taxes either direction.
Yes.
So that's not a horrible thing. It still accomplished somewhat what I wanted against the other 2 players, but it definitely hurt the green player.
Anything you did different in this one?
I'm not sure, because when you're playing the builder game, you want to get more buildings down. And I definitely did not get a lot of builders down, but it was because it was so late that I got all the heads that I wanted, and I finally decided, okay, I need to do engineer. And because of it, I didn't do quite as much building near the end that I thought I would, because I was spending all of my actions on the board trying to move my train. So I'm not really sure whether if I had shifted to doing even more building, if I would have gotten everything done. So I'm not positive about that.
Do you feel like this was a train game for you or a builder game for you?
Good question.
It was half and half. It literally was half and half. The first half of it was to get the 10A building out, and that was going to be my source of delivery.
Can I make a comment about that?
Sure.
I probably should go back and watch the tape one more time to be sure about this, but
yeah,
I think there was a moment where you had to decide between speed or taking the 6 disc off, and I think you took speed.
I took speed because I
which is
knew
a curious move,
because I knew where my train was at the time. If you look at the top row, I knew that if I took the speed early, I was going to get the six cert disc off anyway.
Anyway, okay.
Because it was going to be at
That's
the
right.
upper right.
There you go.
And I had to work out which one I wanted to do first and which would work out best.
Yep.
The thing about taking the speed, though, it's $3 too, which is great.
Yes, the extra
$3 early
$3
is amazing.
Yeah, but I knew because nobody else was moving the train that I was going to dump for the 5th station master, and that would get me my 6. And I wasn't going to be able to drive the certs down into the next loop anyway.
That actually makes sense. That was one of the questions I had for you coming in, and
Sure.
that makes it all clear. Yeah,
sure.
That's right. That's the right play.
So one thing I want to say, you guys talk about blocking the builder. Blocking in this game early is very easy and very impactful, but blocking at the end of the game, you can't really do it. There's not much. You can't really block people at the end of the game.
I agree. I think it's you know what you can do sometimes. If you're saying by blocking you mean throwing tax buildings in there.
Tax buildings, taking builders away from the builder.
Yeah, I agree. Because as we've talked about earlier, money late is not as impactful. But you know what can be impactful though is a well-placed building that screws somebody's movement point flow.
Yeah.
A little thing like that where, like for instance, in some of these games we see, like this one here too, for instance, every once in a while you'll see somebody set up a really nice trip through the rondel where, they can actually quite literally make it all the way through in one turn sometimes if they do it perfect. Right. But usually if someone's doing that, it's because the opponents didn't take a moment to think, what if we threw a building or two right there? And now our opponent is no longer flying around. He or she has to at least stop somewhere and do something suboptimal for the love of God. We need that to happen.
Right.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end of the trail here. So I want to say it's been a real treat to run this tournament. As Eugene mentioned, I am the GM at all the 3 main tournaments where we play this. I'll be running this again. So that's the next thing to give you all heads up for. We're going to be in Pikesville for EuroQuest. We'll be playing the usual format. You'll probably get 3 chances to play, cut to a semi, cut to a final. Please come out if you can. This is Pikesville, Maryland. It's just like northwest of Baltimore.
Correct.
Kind of northwest suburb almost. Kind of a little bit farther than that. But the whole tournament experience, EuroQuest is awesome. It's a smaller crowd than PressCon and certainly smaller than WBC. By the way, you're about to see one of last year's finalists stick his mug in the.
Is that Anthony?
Yeah,
it's coming.
He just did.
No, I think that was that Dan, was that Anthony or was that Dan? Okay.
Oh, maybe that was Dan.
Okay, Randy now explaining to everybody what the hell happened. What the hell happened down there? God damn! Eugene decided to take me out in the third round of the game. Look, oh yeah, I mean, I don't blame him. That was. I think after the game, in a completely gracious and good-natured way, I think Randy was explaining to everybody that he felt like he was targeted in the game by Eugene, and I think Eugene's answer was, "Yeah, it was. You were."
Oh, I completely.
Yeah.
I mean,
straight up.
I normally would not have put the buildings where I put them, but I just felt like he had too much of a strength there.
I mean, you sit down at a table and with Randy Buehler, you need to keep your eye on him. He's a really, really good gamer. I don't want to say out of nowhere, because Dan Smith is actually a real sharp player. He just tends to play games that I don't play. He tends to like my sense of it is that his thing is the somewhat longer games, somewhat more fiddly games. Like I know
he plays Terraform Mars.
Plays Terraform. He hosed me really bad in Terraform. But Dan, if you're listening to this, I still don't forgive you for what you did to me. What you did to me in that Terraforming game. But we're not going to go into it now.
Story.
But that is okay. Well, anyway, we're going to let that go for now. Anyway, so we got to wrap it up. I want to thank both my
past
guests,
champions.
My past champion on my right, the current champion on my left, the wannabe champion someday, sitting here, and yours truly. Here's hoping I can get back into it, and here's hoping I see you, if you're watching this video. Here's hoping I see you make it out to EuroQuest this November. I'd love to see you. It's gonna be a great time. If you can't make that one, come to PressCon in late February. Short of that, we'll see you back at WBC. I don't know that we're going to do this recording every year, to be honest. It's always going to be a question of whether people thought it was valuable and how the feedback was. The feedback for the first one was tremendous. That's awesome. And we'll see. We'll see about this one too. I don't know if we shed. I don't think we shed as much light maybe this year because it's the second try instead of the first. We'll see.
Yeah, we're yapping too much.
We're yapping a little bit. It's all right. Yeah. So anyway,
please come.
I want to thank you. Any last words by either of you that you'd like to get off before we wrap up?
Before we end the whole thing, we should just say who won and the scores.
I'm gonna have the graphic up.
Got it.
I'll have the. We're actually probably talking right now over the score sheet. Although if Anthony's face pops into the screen, he and Dan both mug for the camera briefly, so I'm gonna definitely keep that in there.
So are you going to have the score sheet posted?
Yeah. Like I did last year, I just flashed. I flashed the score sheet on the screen.
Oh, okay. That would be good. It would be nice if everybody saw what.
That's Anthony's hand. I know. That's his arm. Yeah. I know
that's Anthony. Arm. I'm the dark
He's explaining to Randy where all he went wrong. I think probably. Preview of his dad's comments later.
Yeah, it's still an awesome game. I mean, as much as I play, I think it is one of the best games out there.
Yep.
And one of the reasons why it's so good is it's a new game every time. It's a new board. It's what makes it so good.
Absolutely.
So I've been arguing that the meta hasn't shifted, but the way that you keep it interesting is that you fight against that and make sure that somebody doesn't just steamroll the table like you saw in this game. That's a perfect example of it. A player was prevented from getting the fourth builder early. It opened up the game to other possibilities. In this case, ringing the bell and the train ended up winning it, even though it was combined with a builder strategy too, as a hybrid strategy. But,
yeah. And if you look at the worker list, what's left over, there's a ton of workers that never got touched in the whole second half of the game. Yeah. I think every game is different that way.
Well, so we got to wrap it up. But Dan did one thing. Mm-hmm. You did two. Randy did one thing, and Brandon did one thing. Brandon did half of one thing. I think
Brandon did 0.5 thing.
I think Brandon ended up with 3 Cowboys at the end, right? I know he cleared his board off, of course.
But he played Cowboys. Yeah. I think he was dried out of money. I think it is very difficult to play any strategy with only a couple workers,
no matter the strategy.
Correct.
And it's also really difficult to play any strategy if at the start of the trip through the rondel you're giving all your money away.
Right.
That is rough. That personal cow market. That's where you want that in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it would change the game drastically.
Any final words on from your?
No, just thanks a lot, Scott, for doing this and for running the tournaments. I really think that it's as anybody knows, being a game master for any tournament is a lot of work.
It's not any work at all.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Bull.
I just show up, set up the kiosk.
I know it's work because you're always begging me to do stuff. So.
Well, you know, that's what you have friends for, to do all your stuff for you. Normally, it's my kids who do all my stuff for me, right?
Yeah, I still think it's an incredible game. So I just want people to know that.
Do you think that you're going to be able to do anything? Are you working on anything now? Are you doing anything now that's going to make this
in this game?
Yeah.
I'm still. I honestly feel that I have not investigated the game thoroughly.
Yeah.
And I think every game is still worth trying to figure things out, trying to practice new things, trying to see how to force certain strategies to see whether they work or not.
Yep.
As evidenced by my series of 30-point games.
Yes.
that occur all the time. So
is it ever going to be possible to flip the script on the standard 2 deliveries to Kansas City, for instance?
I don't think so.
Question.
I don't think so. I think the money is worth it, even though you hit the 10 on your second loop.
Yeah, that's the key, right?
It's maybe so.
Oh, there it was. Yeah,
oh,
that was great.
Oh, that clown.
There's another
clown. Oh, is the video still running? Jesus. Maybe if you can deliver to 10 at your second delivery, you might be able to pull it off. But if everybody's delivering twice, you haven't lost any points to anybody. And you just have to decide whether the extra money was worth it.
Here's where I'm at on this. I'm really interested in trying to continue to play small ball and see if that can win. Mm-hmm. I did that tonight, and I was telling you before we were talking off camera on this. So I actually walked up to the table hoping I would have a chance to play without buying workers. And the flow of the game, I didn't do it on purpose. I think you should probably play, if you're trying to win, if you're trying to play well, you got to play the game
that comes to you.
Yeah, play the game that's presented to you. But I was really happy to have a game that we just played where I didn't have to buy any workers, and I still figured out a way to do it. I think that's neat. It's fun to play that way.
Yeah, you did it with a total of 2 cowboys, right?
I bought 1 cowboy, and I bought 1 builder, and I gave the builder. I mean, I wasn't buying buildings. I bought like 2 things, so I gave the builder back for the 1 station master and tried to make that one work.
And you still won.
Yeah,
it was a 50-point game.
We all played freaking well. That's why. I mean, the game. We're talking about a game that happens upstairs at our house, but it's indicative of kind of the question we're having now, which was to say we had a situation where one guy set out to build, and in our game group, we target that guy hard, or or accept our loss. So, and definitely you're definitely stoppable. So, all right, great job, everybody. Thank you so much. We will look forward to seeing you at the tournaments upcoming. I'm going to go ahead and put in the game notes below this YouTube video. I'm going to go ahead and list the final scores, the names of everybody who played, our names, your world famous commentators here. I'm also going to mention what the buildings were in the game if it's not clear enough from the video. I apologize. The camcorder I used this year is probably about 10 years old. I will try to upgrade my equipment next year. We had kind of a good rig, but I would also like to do a little better job, if we ever do this again, on capturing certain areas of the board. Some compromise between what we did that first year, where I felt the camera's kind of too far away, and this year where the camera might have been not capturing
just a little bit,
just not quite capturing quite everything, missing a few things. Yeah, so we'll try to do better. Let us know in the comments if this is something you want us to continue to do. And if so, that's something we'll strongly consider. It's been fun to do it. I love chatting about this game. It's one of the things we would be talking about this game, maybe not for 3 hours, but we would be talking about this game for many minutes, even if we weren't doing this video. So it's not actually all that much work for us. So
right. Oh, here's one more thing. So if you happen to make the finals of one of these tournaments, one of the benefits that you get out of it is that you get to play on this incredibly awesome mat, which I think is the only one like it in the entire universe. In the entire universe. It's a wonderful mat that Scott had silk screened onto a neoprene. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. It's like
A neoprene
yeah.
mat, and you get to play on it. And it's just a little shade fuzzy of what the original board looks like.
Yes.
But if you look at it really closely, there's space for everything. Your building setup, your TPs, your hazards you buy, where your money goes. I mean, it's just an awesome mat, and it's always a joy to play on it.
Cool. All right. Thank you both so much for doing this. I had a great time. And until next time, goodbye.